Ladies and gentlemen, next up, please request Mrs. Shaf Al-Usaimi, the Vice President, Corporate Affairs for Ma'aden. Please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Shaf Al-Usaimi, Vice President, Corporate Affairs, Ma'aden. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you to please be seated as I will now hand it over to our moderator. May I request the ushers to close the gates so that we can have a little more order in the house before we begin this panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we are waiting for the Chief Operating Officer, LATAM and Australia Pacific for Barrick, Mr. Mark Hill. I believe he's probably just stepped out of the hall. If I may request Mr. Mark Hill to please join us up on stage. Also, may I request everyone else to be seated so that I can hand it over to our wonderful moderator, Rebecca. This panel will be focused on the pioneering pathways, emerging global mining trends. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mark Hill will be joining us shortly, but over to you, Rebecca. Rebecca, if you'd like to take the other seat, that's fine as well. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this panel discussion is titled as Pioneering Pathways, Emerging Global Mining Trends. Our wonderful moderator partner, Global Head of Mining and Metals at White & Case, Ms. Rebecca Campbell.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. It's a privilege to be here chairing this panel with my esteemed colleagues. And off the back of the wonderful speeches we just heard, it's going to be a hard act for us all to follow, but we're all delighted to be here today. So the topic of our panel is Pioneering Pathways, Emerging Global Trends. But what we wanted to do as a panel today is talk a little bit more about what those emerging global trends mean for Pakistan as well. So to begin with, I'd actually just like to ask each of my panelists about what brought you here to Pakistan today. I'll start with you, Jacques.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca. Firstly, I just want to thank Pakistan for the very warm welcome that the mining industry has received. My first time in Pakistan will definitely not be my last. I think to explain what got me here, most probably just a 2-minute explanation of where I come from. Born and grew up in South Africa on the west side of Johannesburg. As a young boy, I played around the gold mines there, so you can say that I've got dust in my veins. So I was always going to get into the mining industry. Been with Rio Tinto the past 23 years. I'm very passionate about mining because I've seen firsthand the positive impact that this has on local communities. And then thirdly, I've been very fortunate the past 2.5 to 3 years to be involved in the old Toigoi project in Mongolia, which is, when at full production, will be the 4th largest copper mine in the world. And there's very, very similar challenges that we've had, and also some very lessons learned. So if I look at the Recon project and the project that we've had in Mongolia, I'm more than happy to share my learnings there. And yeah, that's basically why I'm here, just to share my learnings.
I'm glad to hear that because I've got some questions for you on that topic later. Cam?
Thanks, Rebecca. First of all, I'd like to echo Jacques' gratitude for the welcome I've had into Pakistan. Again, this is my first time into Pakistan as well. In terms of why I'm here, it's really on two aspects. Number one is that BHP played a critical role about 30 years ago in some of the initial exploration and delineation in and around the Reko Diq deposit. But secondly, as a global player, BHP operates in a number of countries, and we're really very interested in helping countries look at how to sustainably unlock their wealth for their people. And so pleased to be part of the discussion as Pakistan's trying to accelerate that journey here.
It's not working. Do you want to come and sit here?
Not good with the, oh, sorry. We are not good with the emerging technology even in the mining, so that is another thing that we will talk about. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation, and I'm glad to be with you here on this summit. Brief introduction about myself. My name is Shahab Al-Asami. I'm the Vice President for Corporate Affairs in Ma'aden. I have been in the extraction business for the past 25 years since I started my career with the Saudi Aramco, and then I joined the mining sector almost 10 years ago. Why we are here, this is part of our nation or our country commitment to Pakistan at the first dimension of it. So we are committed to support following the steps that we have seen in Saudi Arabia, the development of the mining sector in Pakistan. The second part of it is part of our commitment to our partner, Barrick. We would like to see them succeeding with this very important development in Balochistan. We've been in partnership with Barrick for the past almost 10 years in base metal development. So that's in brief why I'm personally here. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for those introductions. Now, as we said, the theme of today's panel for us was about emerging global trends. And against the backdrop of the hottest July on record, the pressure to accelerate and complete the energy transition is felt by the entire global mining community in two really important ways. First, because, and we've heard it earlier today, we will be supplying the critical minerals for the energy transition. And secondly, because of the need for the sector to decarbonise its own efforts. So to each of the panellists, we'll just go in order for this one. May I have your thoughts on how the evolving global mining sector and Pakistan can cement its global position in the sector amidst the energy transition?
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Look, we can't talk about the transition to the new energy without mining. It's inseparable from each other, obviously. You know, from the critical minerals that will be used in batteries like lithium, copper, which obviously the Recon project is a significant and excellent deposit. It's how quickly the mining companies and the governments can work together to actually bring these major projects to fruition and actually, you know, get it to market as quickly as possible so that we can speed that up. The challenges that we have for the mining industry, though, is we do admit that we are very energy intensive. So there's a bit of a paradox there where, you know, we want to mine these critical minerals to move to a greener energy, but ourselves as mining industry, we ourselves need to see if we can find greener ways to do so. So I'm very proud to say that the company that I work for, Rio Tinto, and obviously the project that I'm currently managing in Otoigwe, we are transitioning ourselves in decarbonisation of our mining fleets, doing things smarter, obviously being socially responsible in the way that we use the natural resources, as in, you know, the water that we use and the recycling. But I think it's a challenge that we have across the globe is, you know, how do we get these major projects up and running as quickly as possible so that we can fill that demand. But yeah, mining is going to play a massive, massive role in that.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, well, I think the world and society is starting to realize now that a world with less carbon in it has a whole lot more mining in it. And the reality is that our existing resource base is challenged to meet that. We heard some multiples this morning, but at a minimum, we're looking at 2 times more copper, 4 times more nickel, 2 times more steel, 2 times more potash to feed the world. And we're going to have to do this increasingly in harmony with the planet. And so within that context, there is a massive potential for Pakistan to contribute to that. Having said that, in unlocking the world's mineral potential, mineral and energy potential, to provide mineral energy resources to society into the future, capital is mobile and it is a competitive framework, right? So for Pakistan, it comes down to 3 main points which were actually touched on quite nicely in the minister's strategy, and that is the rocks themselves. What is it that the earth has given us to work with in Pakistan in terms of what is the resource potential? The second is a stable framework to come in and explore, to be able to unlock that. And the third one is people to help do that. So capability around that. So those are the 3 levers that really Pakistan can pull to be a global player.
Thank you, Rebecca, for the question. And I think the gentleman nailed most of the answers needed to entertain your question. I would add to it is that the globe has agreed on certain ambitious targets when it comes to decarbonization, and taking in consideration that the mining sector, according to a recent study being conducted, is contributing with almost 20% of the greenhouse gases emission, which poses a great deal on us to find technologies, work with R&D, and whoever interested in that to bring that number more. Also, there is an ambitious renewable and green initiatives that everybody's talking about. But in order to entertain that, we need more resources. And unfortunately, most of the known resources are already depleted or in their way to that depletion levels. And we need to bring more resources from elsewhere, such as Pakistan, whether it is for the base metal or rare earth elements. And I think the challenge at that front is that exploration is a long-term process. So governments and interested investors need to work on a pathway to reduce that challenging nature of the exploration in order to, as my colleague said here, to understand what we have in the ground and develop the required processing facility accordingly. So investors by themselves cannot do it. This requires a great deal of enablement from the respective governments in order to achieve that target.
Thank you. So I just want to pick up on something you were touching upon there, Cam, which is one of your 3 pillars around sort of capacity building and knowledge building. Cam, you're renowned for your contribution worldwide to training and mentoring geoscientists. And I have to say that amongst the most common question I've received on my visits to Pakistan is, how can we upskill ourselves for the mining sector? How can we be ready? And I heard almost every speaker this morning touching upon it as well. So what are your thoughts on how Pakistan can best harness and improve its skill base to support a large-scale mining sector? And second part of that question, if I can be so bold, given the shortage of skilled professionals globally in our sector, is there actually a golden global opportunity here for Pakistan as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, there is. Yeah, it's a bit of an enigma that at a time when the world needs more mining, there's actually been a decline globally in registrations in geoscience in universities in countries around the globe. And we absolutely need these professionals to help us with the challenges of sustainably finding and extracting these future resources. But when we talk about capability, it's not just what we consider the professions, so the geoscience, the mining engineering, mineral processing. It's not just those types of professions. It's actually all the trades as well. It's everything through the whole value chain of logistics, of all types of trades that keep the machines running, keep things moving. So everything from how you go explore, discover, develop, produce to product, everything in there is what's needed capability-wise. And if you look at countries that have kept a sustainable mineral economy going, they have invested, the governments have invested in building a knowledge economy around these things, right? They've actually, it's not just the industry, it's usually a partnership. Industry invests in it, yes, but the governments themselves invest in training people throughout that value chain, investing in research and development, in the professions, in the trades. So,
yeah, if I can maybe add some personal experience. One of the things that we are immensely proud of in the project that we're managing in Mongolia is that 97% of our team members are Mongolian nationals. And considering that 10 years ago, mining, although coal mining was pretty big in Mongolia, underground mining, specifically the mining that we're currently doing there, that skill set didn't exist. The other statistic there is that 32% of our team members are female, of which we are extremely proud of. But you need to take a long-term view of the skill sets, and as was mentioned, it's not only the ore body knowledge or the mine planning skill sets that are there. You still need operators on equipment, you still need maintainers, you still need planners. So it's not only the geotech and those skill sets that are needed. But I honestly believe, and I've got a son in the mining industry, I've got a daughter-in-law that's in the mining industry. It all starts from the interest from the parents, and also it actually starts from the schools, because if there's not an interest from the children or from the parents and giving that guidance, and they need to choose the right subjects to get into university, to study the right subjects and find something that they're passionate for. But we do spend a tremendous amount of effort and resources to not only upskill, but also to get graduates into university. And we got to a stage now in Mongolia where our skill set of our Mongolian team members has reached a stage now where they're actually leaving Mongolia and actually going to other parts of the world working for our company. And that is most probably when you can actually say that you've reached your goal, is when the team members that are currently working for you are sought out and actually leave the country.
Yeah, that's an absolute testament, isn't it? Well, Sharf, if I could ask you as well, because I know the Kingdom has, in recent years, actually kick-started big investment into growing, the knowledge economy for the mining sector. So your thoughts are very welcome.
Yeah, and I think now Ma'aden represent a practical example for the recent development that happened, especially that mining activities usually in remote areas and close to communities where development is needed really to contribute to the wealth of that community. So one of the challenges that we faced first is that there is a great shortage globally when it comes to meteorologists, geologists, geoscience experts. So, and when we started at the time also, Saudization level, if I may call it, was not that encouraging. So what to do, we have, and back to my colleague comment, it has to be enabled by a government. So we started a vocational training facility close to the largest mine we got in the northern part of Saudi Arabia, with an intake of 350 from the community that hosts our operation. And that helped us a lot to increase our Saudization level between 2009 and the current level, where we reached almost 80% of our workforce are Saudis. The second thing, we started with the universities, a partnership to establish an earth science colleges, one in the western part of Saudi Arabia with King Abdulaziz University, and the other one with King Fahd University, which is one of the top universities in Saudi Arabia, only dedicated for earth science and meteorologists and the different field that the mining is in need for. The second part is that we are, as a responsible organization, took the diversity and inclusion of our society as an important target. So we started with almost a zero level, and especially the mines are not attractive place for all of our community. So you need to make sure that your workplace is friendly when it comes to attracting especially women. And this was a transformation program that took us at least 5 years in order to upgrade our facilities and transportation means to attract ladies to join us. Now we are at 5% level of our total workforce, and we are targeting to reach 15% by 2026. So it is still challenging, but it can be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I've been told we've got about 10 minutes left, so I've got a question for Jacques, a question for you, Shaf, and then one to wrap up for all of us. So first of all, for you, Jacques, you have alluded to your role developing Oyu Tolgoi, and given your experiences developing one of the world's largest copper deposits, a site which is many kilometres from a coast in a landlocked country, please can you share your insights on how international miners, Pakistani investors and the various arms of government can collaborate on the infrastructure required to bring the mineral sector to reality in Pakistan?
Yeah, I most probably need more than 10 minutes on that one, but look, I think it was alluded in one of the speeches. Obviously, power certainty is really, really important to run a mine. So wherever you are going to invest, or any projects that you want to develop, is to get that sorted out. Obviously, if you're going to engage with local communities, the social license to operate is critically important, because you're going to be there for a very, very long time, and you need to be transparent on the footprint of the mine and also the benefits of it. And if you're going to use natural resources like water, you need to make sure that you use that very responsibly. Obviously, you need to look at your market and how you're actually getting your product out of there. So currently for our project, our concentrate gets shipped to the Chinese border, and the infrastructure that needed to be installed there, like roadways, railways, and so forth, needs to be taken in consideration as well. But I would say front of mind for me is to make sure that the power is resolved, and if you can get that resolved, then the infrastructure can be built. Yeah.
Thanks, Jacques. Okay, so I wanted to turn to you've mentioned technology, and I wanted to turn to the conversation to the role of new technologies in exploration, mining and processing. So Shaf, your company, Martin, has been very busy of late, but I did, for the purposes of today, I actually just wanted to focus in on a smaller but nevertheless very interesting deal that Martin's done recently to do an exploration joint venture in the kingdom. And with Pakistan's mineral wealth relatively underexplored, what is the role for new technology in exploration? And your thoughts on developing exploration here in the country.
You mean the Ivanhoe Technology Partnership? Yeah. We have been tasked with a national target to explore the eastern part of Saudi Arabia, which is the platform. And we are talking about almost 100,000 square kilometers, which is a humongous task to be handled by the conventional exploration technologies. And it happens that we have started discussion with Ivanhoe with an emerging technology that can scan bigger spaces with less time and accurate results when it comes to. So we just started this task, and hopefully it will be completed within 3 years, and we will share our experience at that front. But I just want, because we share the same experience as the Pakistani are trying to develop right now, which is when you come to a land with a lot of, I wouldn't call it lack, but absence of the required infrastructure. And in our case, our total investment between 2010 and until today is more than 135 billion Saudi riyal. Almost 35 billion Saudi riyal has been paid by the government as an enablement, which is, Barrick is a great partner to work with, but you don't expect Barrick to shoulder the entire investment required for that. So there has to be a collaboration between the local government there or the federal government in order to fuel further investments by others, whether it is Barrick or anybody else. The second part is regarding the exploration. And I would recommend that more companies to be participating in that exploration initiative. That part of Pakistan is very attractive. It hasn't been a lot. Most of the required data in order to understand what is there is not there. So I would call that a national exploration program, like what we have done in Saudi Arabia, has to be established in Pakistan in order to see more investments in that part of Pakistan.
And Cam, your thoughts on what are the ingredients of a successful exploration program for Pakistan?
Well, attracting a successful exploration program, as I said before, capital's mobile. So the first thing is, how do you advertise the potential of Pakistan in terms of mineral resources? We've heard numbers of 6 trillion. So how do you assess if that actually is there or where it is? You need the data, right? So we need access to information that is provided by governments, because really the governments are the only institution that can get the data sets on the scales we need. It needs to then be made accessible so it's useful, usable, and used. And that attracts, history shows, whenever countries put out those big data sets, it attracts people. It attracts people who come with ideas, concepts that then help unlock that value. And then the second thing, of course, is that stable framework within which to operate, to know that we can come in, we can operate safely, we can build trusted relationships with all levels of communities, to state, to federal organizations, to make sure that mining is going to be value positive right from the exploration stage all the way through the process.
Okay, so to wrap up, each of you, 1 minute, what is the biggest opportunity for Pakistan as it takes its mining sector from dust to development?
Well, I think we've heard today Pakistan has the opportunity to be a leader in the mining industry, just looking at the people around here. So I've written down 3 things, which was brought up in a couple of the speeches as well. So I think the first thing is to develop and implement clear policies and transparent policies, which will make it a lot easier for investors and major mining companies to invest in Pakistan. Secondly, one thing that I'm very passionate about, and all 3 of us spoke about, is to build a talent pipeline for people that is going to work in the mining industry. You need to take a long-term view, because these major projects are going to be here for decades, so we need to have a look at that. And then thirdly is the ESG and the social license to operate is to engage with the local community as soon and often as possible to ensure that they benefit from the deposit and from the engagement from this mining company. So I would say those three things, the one window, the policies, training, skill sets, and then thirdly is the social license to operate.
Thanks, Jacques. Cam?
Well, look, I'd echo everything Jacques said there, but I think the thing to add is that Pakistan has a young, ambitious, clever, creative population, and I'd love to see them unleashed on the challenge of finding and discovering the resources in Pakistan.
It's a real call to action there.
I would replicate the same answers being given by my colleague here, but I would add to it is that local, I would call them local service suppliers. If you don't have that system in place where I can talk to like drillers and what have you, it would be very difficult for the exploration entity or the miners to bring everybody from abroad, and because it would be an enormous additional cost on them. The other thing is that, which is I would like to emphasize on, is the first point mentioned by regarding legislation and policies attached to the mining sector is well known. Either you go with the JORC compliance, or if that is not around, it would be very difficult for a miner to continue with his operation. So, and the last part is the talents. Of course, I'm not going to bring everybody from abroad to continue working in a remote area. So unless we develop at least the first batch of the required workforce, otherwise everybody else coming to the place will compete with the workforce that Barrick have. So you don't want that to happen. So.
Okay, so I just want to thank my esteemed panelists. Thank you to the audience, and we will wrap this up. We're obviously all available to answer questions after the panel.
Thank you so much to this panel. May I request you all to please come together for a group photograph, and may I request the photographers to please capture this wonderful photo opportunity. Thank you, Rebecca, Mr. Jacques Van Tonder, Mr. Campbell McQuagg, and Mr. Shaf Al-Usemi. You had some great advice for Pakistan to really make the most of this opportunity, clear and transparent policies, and developing, of course, a talent pipeline, and being mindful of the ESG, environment and ecosystem. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we are going to break for a working lunch. But as you can see, we are behind the schedule. We'd love for you to all reconvene no later than 2:15, and we are going to resume our program. Once again, may I remind you that we will be back here starting our next session at 2:15. Please enjoy your working lunch and be back here.
South Asia lies a land blessed with abundant mineral wealth. Pakistan, where opportunity in minerals spans across the length and breadth of the country. From coal and rock salt to gold and gemstones, the diverse landscape holds a treasure of valuable minerals waiting to be discovered. Pakistan is blessed with significant deposits of minerals with an estimated worth of billions. Pakistan has some of the world's largest reserves of chromite, coal and copper. This presents potential and hope for economic growth and development that could transform the nation. The mining industry in Pakistan has the potential to contribute 3 to 5% to our GDP, but it now makes less than 1%. It is this very dust beneath our feet that carries a promise for development and prosperity for Pakistan, as well as contributing towards global growth. Rakadik project stands as a brilliant example of optimism and determination on a national scale. This project has gained investors' confidence in Pakistan's mineral sector, which was undertaken in partnership with Barrick Gold Corporation, a prominent worldwide leader in the industry. The government of Pakistan has created the Special Investment Facilitation Council (SIFC), a whole-of-government strategy to enhance foreign and local investment in Pakistan. The SIFC's mission is to facilitate potential investors in the quickest amount of time through a one-window operation. Pakistan has the potential to become an icon on the world mineral map. With continued policy implementation, foreign and private sector investment and technical cooperation, through this program we can create a future in which Pakistan's natural wealth serves as a beacon of hope for development and prosperity. Let's work together to unlock the country's full potential, invest in Pakistan, and create a thriving future for our nation. heart of South Asia lies a land blessed with abundant mineral wealth. Pakistan, where opportunity in minerals spans across the length and breadth of the country. From coal and rock salt to gold and gemstones, the diverse landscape holds a treasure of valuable minerals waiting to be discovered. Pakistan is blessed with significant deposits of minerals with an estimated worth of billions. Pakistan has some of the world's largest reserves of chromite, coal and copper. This presents potential and hope for economic growth and development that could transform the nation. The mining industry in Pakistan has the potential to contribute 3 to 5% to our GDP, but it now makes less than 1%. It is this very dust beneath our feet that carries a promise for development and prosperity for Pakistan, as well as contributing towards global growth. Rakadik project stands as a brilliant example of optimism and determination on a national scale. This project has gained investors' confidence in Pakistan's mineral sector, which was undertaken in partnership with Barrick Gold Corporation, a prominent worldwide leader in the industry. The government of Pakistan has created the Special Investment Facilitation Council (SIFC), a whole-of-government strategy to enhance foreign and local investment in Pakistan. The SIFC's mission is to facilitate potential investors in the quickest amount of time through a one-window operation. Pakistan has the potential to become an icon on the world mineral map. With continued policy implementation, foreign and private sector investment and technical cooperation, through this program we can create a future in which Pakistan's natural wealth serves as a beacon of hope for development and prosperity. Let's work together to unlock the country's full potential, invest in Pakistan, and create a thriving future for our nation. South Asia lies a land blessed with abundant mineral wealth. Pakistan, the opportunity in minerals spans across the length and breadth of the country. From coal and rock salt to gold and gemstones, the diverse landscape holds a treasure of valuable minerals waiting to be discovered. Pakistan is blessed with significant deposits of minerals with an estimated worth of billions. Pakistan has some of the world's largest reserves of chromite, coal and copper. This presents potential and hope for economic growth and development that could transform the nation. The mining industry in Pakistan has the potential to contribute 3 to 5% to our GDP, but it now makes less than 1%. It is this very dust beneath our feet that carries a promise for development and prosperity for Pakistan, as well as contributing towards global growth. Rakadik project stands as a brilliant example of optimism and determination on a national scale. This project has gained investors' confidence in Pakistan's mineral sector, which was undertaken in partnership with Barrick Gold Corporation, a prominent worldwide leader in the industry. The government of Pakistan has created the Special Investment Facilitation Council (SIFC), a whole-of-government strategy to enhance foreign and local investment in Pakistan. The SIFC's mission is to facilitate potential investors in the quickest amount of time through a one-window operation. Pakistan has the potential to become an icon on the world mineral map. With continued policy implementation, foreign and private sector investment and technical cooperation, through this program we can create a future in which Pakistan's natural wealth serves as a beacon of hope for development and prosperity. Let's work together to unlock the country's full potential, invest in Pakistan, and create a thriving future for our nation. South Asia lies a land blessed with abundant mineral wealth. Pakistan, the opportunity in minerals spans across the length and breadth of the country. From coal and rock salt to gold and gemstones, the diverse landscape holds a treasure of valuable minerals waiting to be discovered. Pakistan is blessed with significant deposits of minerals with an estimated worth of billions. Pakistan has some of the world's largest reserves of chromite, coal and copper. This presents potential and hope for economic growth and development that could transform the nation. The mining industry in Pakistan has the potential to contribute 3 to 5% to our GDP, but it now makes less than 1%. It is this very dust beneath our feet that carries a promise for development and prosperity for Pakistan, as well as contributing towards global growth. Rakodik project stands as a brilliant example of optimism and determination on a national scale. This project has gained investors' confidence in Pakistan's mineral sector, which was undertaken in partnership with Barrick Gold Corporation, a prominent worldwide leader in the industry. The government of Pakistan has created the Special Investment Facilitation Council (SIFC), a whole-of-government strategy to enhance foreign and local investment in Pakistan. The SIFC's mission is to facilitate potential investors in the quickest amount of time through a one-window operation. Pakistan has the potential to become an icon on the world mineral map. With continued policy implementation, foreign and private sector investment and technical cooperation, through this program we can create a future in which Pakistan's natural wealth serves as a beacon of hope for development and prosperity. Let's work together to unlock the country's full potential, invest in Pakistan, and create a thriving future for our nation. South Asia lies a land blessed with abundant mineral wealth. Pakistan, where opportunity in minerals spans across the length and breadth of the country. From coal and rock salt to gold and gemstones, the diverse landscape holds a treasure of valuable minerals waiting to be discovered. Pakistan is blessed with significant deposits of minerals with an estimated worth of billions. Pakistan has some of the world's largest reserves of chromite, coal and copper. This presents potential and hope for economic growth and development that could transform the nation. The mining industry in Pakistan has the potential to contribute 3 to 5% to our GDP, but it now makes less than 1%. It is this very dust beneath our feet that carries a promise for development and prosperity for Pakistan, as well as contributing towards global growth. Rakadik project stands as a brilliant example of optimism and determination on a national scale. This project has gained investors' confidence in Pakistan's mineral sector, which was undertaken in partnership with Barrick Gold Corporation, a prominent worldwide leader in the industry. The government of Pakistan has created the Special Investment Facilitation Council (SIFC), a whole-of-government strategy to enhance foreign and local investment in Pakistan. The SIFC's mission is to facilitate potential investors in the quickest amount of time through a one-window operation. Pakistan has the potential to become an icon on the world mineral map. With continued policy implementation, foreign and private sector investment and technical cooperation, through this program we can create a future in which Pakistan's natural wealth serves as a beacon of hope for development and prosperity. Let's work together to unlock the country's full potential, invest in Pakistan, and create a thriving future for our nation. South Asia lies a land blessed with abundant mineral wealth. Pakistan, where opportunity in minerals spans across the length and breadth of the country. From coal and rock salt to gold and gemstones, the diverse landscape holds a treasure of valuable minerals waiting to be discovered. Pakistan is blessed with significant deposits of minerals with an estimated worth of billions. Pakistan has some of the world's largest reserves of chromite, coal and copper. This presents potential and hope for economic growth and development that could transform the nation. The mining industry in Pakistan has the potential to contribute 3 to 5% to our GDP, but it now makes less than 1%. It is this very dust beneath our feet that carries a promise for development and prosperity for Pakistan, as well as contributing towards global growth. Rakadik project stands as a brilliant example of optimism and determination on a national scale. This project has gained investors' confidence in Pakistan's mineral sector, which was undertaken in partnership with Barrick Gold Corporation, a prominent worldwide leader in the industry. The government of Pakistan has created the Special Investment Facilitation Council (SIFC), a whole-of-government strategy to enhance foreign and local investment in Pakistan. The SIFC's mission is to facilitate potential investors in the quickest amount of time through a one-window operation. Pakistan has the potential to become an icon on the world mineral map. With continued policy implementation, foreign and private sector investment and technical cooperation, through this program we can create a future in which Pakistan's natural wealth serves as a beacon of hope for development and prosperity. Let's work together to unlock the country's full potential, invest in Pakistan, and create a thriving future for our nation.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now be resuming our next session. May I request the delegates to make their way back and find your seats in the hall. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be beginning with our next session. May I request you to please come in and take your seats. सर किसकी फ्लाइट को
through a one-window operation. Pakistan has the potential to become an icon on the world mineral map. With continued policy implementation, foreign and private sector investment and technical cooperation, through this program we can create a future in which Pakistan's natural wealth serves as a beacon of hope for development and prosperity. Let's work together to unlock the country's full potential, invest in Pakistan, and create a thriving future for our nation.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now resuming our next session. This one is titled as Gateway to Prosperity, Fostering Investment in Pakistan's Mineral Landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are now going to begin the next session, I have an important announcement from Ipsos. If you notice on your tables, there's a QR code there as well, and there are some survey forms already provided. Most of you have very kindly filled out these survey forms, but could you also make a small effort and actually deposit these with the Ipsos team in the hallway? They have their own little setup there. Please make sure that you're able to drop the survey forms that have been filled out with them. Also, you can get in touch and do this online through the QR code. So that was the message from Ipsos. We are now going to segue into our next panel discussion. This one is titled as Gateway to Prosperity, Fostering Investment in Pakistan's Mineral Landscape. And for this, we have Mr. Kamran Ahmed, the partner at White & Case LLP, as our moderator. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kamran Ahmed. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now take this opportunity for inviting this able panel. First and foremost, the Managing Director, Jefferies, Oliver Daschel, will be with us. Please welcome. Oliver Daschel, Managing Director, Jefferies. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, Global Head Mining and Metals at Rothschild and Company, Corina Danielou. We'll soon be joined by Pierre K2, who is the Managing Director of Lazard. He will be joining us shortly. Oh, you're right there. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. May I also request Rebecca Campbell, the Partner, Global Head and Mining and Metals, White & Case. Last but definitely not the least, please welcome Senior Advisor RBNA Partners, Glenn Ireland. With this, this session is titled as Gateway to Prosperity, Fostering Investment in Pakistan's Mineral Landscape. Kamran, I'll hand it over to you, and you can stand.
Honourable and distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the third panel discussion. We're going to be moving quite quickly because of the scheduling through this panel. But let me introduce myself very quickly. My name is Kamran Ahmed. I'm a partner at White & Case based in London and advise public and private sector companies on capital-intensive projects in the natural resources sector. I was one of the lawyers involved in the Reko Dik project that Dr. Bristow mentioned earlier today. So the focus of this panel is on what can be done to foster investment in Pakistan. We will hear from a very seasoned and experienced group of professionals with decades of experience in the natural resources sector and arranging financing for these projects. Let me ask each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves, literally just 30 seconds, please, as we're very short on time. So maybe Oliver, if you want to begin, and then we work down the panel.
Does this work now? Yeah, okay. So thank you very much for having us. It's a pleasure being here in Islamabad. I must admit it's my first time here, but I'm looking forward to coming here many more times. And it's been absolutely fascinating to listen to the first few sessions here today. By way of background, I'm a managing director at Jefferies. I've been doing investment banking for 17 years. I'm part of our metals and mining team, and I'm based in New York City. I've been in the US for the last 12 years, and prior to that I was in London for 4. And at Jefferies, I do head up our base and precious metals coverage.
Thank you. Karina?
Hi, Karina Daniluk. I'm the Global Head of Metals and Mining at Rothschild & Co. For the past 20 years, I've advised executive teams and boards of directors of mining companies around the world on M&A transactions, complex financings, other strategic initiatives. And my connection to Pakistan is that for about 2 years, we spent advising Barrick on the reconstitution of the Reko Dik project. So it's near and dear to my heart. And I am now leading the team that is advising Reko Dik on raising limited recourse project financing for the development of the project.
Thank you. And Pierre?
Hello, oh, yes. Yeah, many thanks. My name is Pierre Kaito. I'm the managing director at Lazar. I'm in charge of a group that advises governments in the world on financial matters. So I've been doing that for many years. I worked also at the International Monetary Fund, at the BIS in Basel, etc. But at Lazard, we are advising governments, and my connection with this conference and this country is that we, at Lazard, we advised the government of Pakistan in the Reko Dik matter in order to try to find a solution.
Thank you. Rebecca?
Yeah. So Rebecca Campbell, Global Head of Mining and Metals at White & Case, working very closely with Kamran. I've dedicated my professional career to serving the mining and metals sector, and it's with great pleasure that we've been assisting in the reconstitution of the Reko Dik project, and it's been our introduction, or my introduction to Pakistan, but I know it's only an introduction.
And last but not least, Glenn.
Thank you. Glenn Ireland, a senior advisor at RBNA Partners. It's a boutique financial advisory firm based in Dubai. For over 30 years, I've provided advice to clients in the mining and metals sector on legal, strategic, and commercial matters. Before joining RBNA, I led the global mining and metals practice for the law firm Latham & Watkins.
Thank you very much. So I was asked to say a few words to just set the scene, but I think after the sessions this morning, it's actually very, very clear to everyone who listened to those sessions what the opportunity is in Pakistan and what we need to do in order to maximize that opportunity. And what I really wanted to try and get from our panel this afternoon is about prioritization. So we know what we need to foster an environment to attract investment, but what should we prioritize? And if I actually may begin with Pierre, you're the panelist with a focus on advising sovereigns. What would you, in this situation, obviously you're advising the government, but what would you say needs to be done, the low-hanging fruit that can be targeted to really scale up the opportunity for investment in the sector, both international investment and obviously investment from within Pakistan?
Many thanks, Kamran. I think I'm going to try to take stock of what has been done over the last year, not only in the Recodic matter, to try to draw some lessons of what works in order to de-risk the process and indeed to encourage investors to come to places. Now, to be sure, there are risks in Pakistan, but my professional lives taught me that there are risks everywhere, and certainly in the context of infrastructure or investing, etc. If you are an investor in France, for instance, you have to deal with a government that is erratic very often as well, etc. So this is a very important matter, and this is a matter that is even more important in a context where the cost of capital has increased. Interest rates are 4 percentage points higher than they were when we discussed 2 years ago. And also all the standards are being upgraded. So the cost of operating is higher. And so if the cost of operating is higher, that means actually the return adjusted to risk goes down unless you are able to minimize risk for investors. And so how can you minimize risk for investors in the most efficient way? And I would say, perhaps I'm not going to give you a number of small recipes and such, but I would say if you look at the case of Pakistan, which I think is a very interesting one, the best protection against erratic government behavior, again that you have everywhere in the world, is a thorough understanding of the value of investments for the community. So what happened in Pakistan, which I think is very important, is 2 things, and that may be replicated in other places or for other projects in Pakistan. The first thing is that there was a comprehensive understanding of the merits and the costs also, the concessions for the government of the project in Recodic. Very important. Looking at the financial, the profits, how the profits are shared, looking at the tax, what the tax that comes to governments, the economic benefits in terms of economic growth, of balance of payments, more dollars, in terms of jobs, very important, in terms of infrastructure. So when the community, when the population has understood that this issue is about jobs, is about all those elements, you have a different perspective. And the second element, which was very important, was the transparency of the exercise. Why? Because in fact, some of us, actually, we went even to the Supreme Court to explain what was being done. And there had been a discussion in the Parliament. So transparency plus a comprehensive understanding of the costs and benefits, really, I believe this is a recipe to fight on what was a major problem in Pakistan in the context of Recodic, and this is the end of my point, is the lack of understanding of the opportunity cost of not developing the mine for the population, for Balochistan, etc. And that's really, this approach helped a lot.
Thank you. No, I think that's a critical point. Maybe, Karina, as the mining finance banker on the panel, we could ask you to just give us an overview on the competitiveness of the landscape for funding in the sector. And what is driving the flow of capital to mining projects? And what do you think the fundamental drivers are?
What's driving the flow of capital today is really no different at the end of the day than it's always been, which ultimately it's downstream demand. So during the super cycle and the aughts, it was the massive infrastructure build out in China that drove the demand for iron ore, for copper, for coking coal. And today, the drivers are slightly different. The drivers are really the future and transition economy and everything that underpins it, including energy transition, including the demand for battery minerals, including the demand of key upstream components that form the basis of that transition economy. So it is still the downstream. As far as funding, when you move sort of away from that downstream demand and closer to actual project development, traditionally the structure of the mining sector has been such that there are a number of junior exploration players that would run around the world and find deposits. And those junior companies were really the incubators of resource generation. And as the projects, that was generally funded through equities, public markets. And then as projects moved up the development curve, then mining companies that were in the production segment of the industry would take interest and fund either through joint partnerships or simply acquire those junior players. What's different today is that the public equity markets really aren't there to any large extent. There is still some capital flowing from the equity markets. It's mostly follow-on equity issues and mostly focused on the lithium segment of the industry. Some is still flowing into gold, but public markets that are funding the mining industry today are what I would call sort of speculative capital. There are other sources of funding that have come in to fill that gap, and those sources of equity capital include governmental sources, be it sovereign wealth funds. We heard today from the Vice Minister of Saudi Arabia that there's a joint venture that's been formed between the state-owned mining company and PIF. That's a significant potential source of capital for the mining sector. Or governments are frankly funding the industry through various subsidies, such as the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, which has a significant allocation of funds that will flow towards a subsector of the mining industry in order to supply the downstream industry in the U.S. There is still the debt capital markets largely closed to the mining sector at the moment, not to say that they won't change in the future. The bank finance market is still out there, although the number of institutions willing to support the mining sector has shrunk. But really, the funds are being driven by downstream demand and newcomers into the equity funding segment of the mining finance universe, which traditionally have not been participants or players, such as an example, OEMs. So these are car manufacturers that are concerned about security of supply for key critical components that go into electric vehicle manufacturing, that have started looking at and have started making equity investments in the upstream mining sector. So I suspect we'll see more of that. We'll see more of those types of structures that underpin financing for new mining development.
Thank you very much. So we've talked about the drivers for financing into the sector. I guess the question is, what about the cost of that financing, and what can be done to optimize risk premiums in Pakistan and make financing, debt equity financing, more affordable? And as our second banker on the panel, maybe Oliver, you want to take that one? Is that okay?
Yes, sure. I mean, I think when you talk about something that is a little elusive like country risk, right? I think you first got to start with how can I quantify it, right? And there are many different ways you can look at country risk, but maybe the most intuitive one is, and maybe the most reliable one, given that it is based on market prices, is you compare the cost of US dollar denominated bonds issued by the government of Pakistan, let's call it 10-year tenor, and you compare that to the same type of instrument that has been issued by the US government, right? And when you look at the yield differential of those two bonds, the spread right now is at 12.6%, right? And that's obviously a staggering number. But I think, there are good news kind of when you kind of listen to what has been said during the inaugural session here, because I think a lot of what has been said does address kind of some of the key concerns, and if you deliver on kind of like those various parameters, you should be able to drive down the risk premium over time, right? So what do I mean by that? Stability, right? Stability in particular as it relates to political and fiscal stability, right? I think is critical. And stability is so critical because we're talking here about assets that are multi-generational in terms of their time frame, right? So, and they're also highly capital intense. So if you ask investors to put billions of dollars in terms of foreign direct investment into the country, and they are effectively doing that in the anticipation of being here in the country, being a good corporate citizen for 50, 60, 70 years, then clearly what you're most concerned about is stability, right? The other thing that has been articulated by Barrick, by Rio Tinto, BHP, Ma'aden, is the need for a relaxation of red tape, right? And I think your minister laid it out nicely by saying we want to kind of cut the red tape and instead roll out the red carpet, right? I think that's a very catchy way of framing it, but I think that is exactly what is ultimately required, right? So in conclusion, my view is your leadership has identified the issues and has clearly committed to addressing them, and that I think will have a meaningful impact on risk premia over time. And then the last point is an important one, and Pierre raised it, I think partnership. If you do partner and you do sit in the same boat and you have the same incentives, then you create inherent stability, right? Because like your interests are aligned, and I think that is a very good way of overcoming kind of like the steep risk premium that you see in the short term, and then hopefully drive it down over time.
Thank you. Karina, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, maybe just to add to what Oliver is just saying, all of which I 100% agree with. The industry tends to have leaders and followers, and probably just like any industry, but mining in particular. And Pakistan is today a frontier jurisdiction for the mining industry. There just hasn't been significant foreign investment, at least not broadly, going into the sector. So the key to reducing that risk premium, which is real or perhaps perceived, is demonstrating that a specific project, a large project, Reko Diq, it works, right? The framework that has been established, that has been specifically set up to attract foreign investment, to attract third-party project financing, that it is demonstrated to work, and that the project is built, and it operates successfully, and it delivers returns to investors. And that will be the key, I think, to reducing risk premium over time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth talking more broadly about project finance for large-scale mining projects in Pakistan, because, as you say, it will unlock funds for the sector. The next question I'm going to ask, maybe Rebecca, you can kick off. It's actually on this theme, and then if each of the panelists could just give their view, that would be great. Is how do you envisage raising project financing for mining projects, large-scale mining projects in particular in Pakistan? Maybe Rebecca, if you could kick off, building on Karina's intro there.
Well, I'll kick off, but with this panel here, I think we might just have to pick one topic each. So I'm going to actually pick the topic of ESG as an enabler for project finance. In the last 2 days since I've been here, I might have been asked 50 times, what are your views on the energy transition and ESG, and how can we build mining projects in Pakistan that satisfy global ESG requirements? Touching on something Karina just said, I think this is a massive opportunity actually, because you are going to, as a country, because these are you're at the cusp of building the first large scale mining projects in the country. You actually don't have the legacy that a lot of other countries and projects around the world have of past environmental and social misdeeds, let me put it that way. There's actually a massive opportunity to build projects in compliance with and, you know, sometimes setting world's best standard in a Pakistani context. And that is an enabler of many of the sources of finance for project finance that we've been talking about today. And there's a number of people here in this room who are, you know, the potential providers of project finance to the Reko Diq project. And each and every one of those, each and every one of the major lenders who'll be looking at the project will be setting the bar on ESG, and therefore it is a massive opportunity.
Thank you. Glenn, maybe we can hear from you on the same question, but maybe a different topic.
Sure.
Well, maybe I'll speak to the point around financing strategies and plans within individual projects.
Yeah.
I mean, as has been said, obviously these projects are massively capital intensive. They involve significant infrastructure investments in addition to investments in the mining operation. And I don't think I've ever been involved in a major mining project that's come in under budget or not been delayed by some degree, which puts additional funding pressure on the owners and sponsors of the project. So I think it's essential when trying to consider, you know, potential sources of funding and financing strategy that the partners of any individual project really get together and come up with a plan that they can agree on. And that's sometimes more difficult than it seems. Dr. Bristow this morning, when he mentioned Pakistan's involvement in Reko Diq at the ownership level, government of Balochistan and the Pakistani SOEs, he got a big round of applause. And it's clearly a very important thing for Pakistan that it be invested locally in these projects. But obviously the financing pressures that will apply potentially to the Pakistani or local entities versus a major international mining company like Barrick will be quite different. And whereas an international mining company coming into a project in Pakistan might be looking for project financing to secure or provide political risk mitigation, local partners might actually be looking for project financing to supply capital and to reduce their equity commitments and obligations. And I guess the final point I would make is, let's not forget that project finance is a kind of limited recourse financing, but the lenders don't take the risk of a project being completed. So all of the partners need to get together and come up with a plan for how they will guarantee for the lenders the eventual successful completion of the project. Again, the provision of those guarantees is not as easy for each of the partners in a project, typically. I mean, we've seen, for example, in Mongolia, some of these issues play out on the most recent world-class copper-gold project, and I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that situation.
Thank you. I don't know, Oliver, if you wanted to just share some thoughts on the topic of project finance in the sector, and then just, Karina, if you have anything else to add. I'm just conscious of time. We've got 2 or 3 more minutes. Pierre, of course, you're more than welcome to go as well.
I just wanted to say that there is also, my contention is that probably those projects will be financed with a good deal of public money. Either sovereign wealth funds, as you mentioned, or also multilateral development banks that are struggling a bit because, of course, some of those projects, maybe they don't believe they are clean enough for them, but they are going to be clean to some extent, and they are really looking for balance sheet optimization. That is the Asian Development Bank, the African Development Banks. They are really looking for hybrid solutions where they can put some patient money into capital into those projects.
Thank you. Karina, Oliver, any final thoughts?
I think what Pierre just mentioned. I think what Pierre just mentioned is critical. That basically all those different pockets of capital come together, right? Because like you need the operators such as Barrick, for example, right, that leads the project. You need the long-term capital, for example, from a sovereign wealth fund that can help fund the equity portion. And then on the back of kind of like those two parties joining and de-risking the project, I think raising capital from multinational agencies, development banks, import and export banks is becoming a whole lot easier, right? So basically you need to orchestrate a consortium where basically you deliver a fully funded solution for what are inherently very large CapEx projects.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're working to a condensed timetable given scheduling constraints, so we don't want to overstay our welcome because I know we've got two fantastic panels still to come. Maybe I can just conclude with a few remarks and then we could show some appreciation for our panel. I mean, I'm going to repeat what's already been said, but I think, for me, looking at what we've discussed today, that there are three key drivers, right? Pakistan has the human capital endowment. It's about tapping that endowment. And you've got the mineral endowment as well, and it's about understanding that. And we've heard today a very, very clear strategy and vision that's been articulated, from the top, and that needs to flow all the way down. So I think that was my concluding remarks, and I just wanted to thank our great panel here for their observations and for sticking to our very condensed timetable this afternoon. Thank you very much.
May I request the panel to please come together for a group picture, please? And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do some inward reflection, some insights and wisdom from the local players, our leaders who've braved, who've been resilient in some very challenging times. But now let's look towards them. There is, of course, that vision, and that shared value can be seen in how Pakistan's mineral deposit can be a game changer for Pakistan and the region and the world. But more importantly, a number of times Pakistan is branded to be a place where there is high risk and high gains. Unfortunately, in the recent times, those high gains have also been very dwindling. So let's look at what keeps the businesses afloat, what gives them optimism, and how are the numbers looking? Again, borrowing from a phrase used earlier, from the macro indicators coming down to the micro emotions. Ladies and gentlemen, this panel will be focusing on developing mineral sector in the local business environment. What are some of the pros and cons, some strengths and weaknesses, and more importantly, some opportunities and challenges as in right now in 2023, but what is the next decade looking like? Some leaders who've led some robust teams, have diversified and have been in the business for very long. I'm sure that their wisdom will add much value. Please join me in welcoming the moderator for this session, Managing Director GHPL, Mr. Masood Nabi. Masood Saab, I'll be handing over your panel to you soon. May I request you to please take your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, joining this eminent panel, first and foremost, we have the Chief Executive Officer of the 4G Foundation. Please welcome Mr. Waqar Ahmed Malik. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming President Engro Corporation, Mr. Ghayas Khan. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Chief Executive Officer, Lucky Cement and the YBG Group, Mr. Muhammad Ali Tabba. May I request the organizers to please add in a chair? We'll need we need a setup of 9 and we have 3 and 7. We'll need about 2 more chairs, or if I may request the moderator to take the podium. Yeah, we'll need 1 more chair. If I may request the organizers to please add that. You can take my sofa if you'd like. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Chairman of the Arif Habib Corporation, Mr. Arif Habib. He too will be joining us shortly. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, a leading entrepreneur, someone we see as a force to reckon with in the Pakistan industry and business. Please welcome Dr. Zilaf Munir. Do we have somebody from the housekeeping team here? We'd like to add one more sofa to the panel, please. He's bringing that. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President and CEO of Hilton Pharma, Mr. Shehbaz Yassin Malik. Ladies and gentlemen, President, Overseas Investors Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Amir Paracha. Masood Saab, if I may request you to please join me up on the podium. Amir, you may take this first chair. If I can just request, yeah, it's done. Last but definitely not the least, may I request Mr. Fahim Haider, Managing Director, Mari Petroleum Company, to please join us up on stage. On a lighter note, Sara maslai kursi ka hai, so since everybody now has a chair, may I now hand it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sidra. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, distinguished guests. I am Masood Nabi, the CEO of Government Holdings Private Limited. I also head Pakistan Minerals Private Limited, which is a joint venture of OGDC, GHPL and Pakistan Petroleum. This company is Barrick's partner in the Reko project along with the government of Balochistan. It is my honor to be here today to moderate this valuable discussion on developing mineral sector in the local business environment. We have a great panel with us comprising key figures of Pakistan's local business community, and I extend a warm welcome to all of the distinguished guests over here. They are all such well-known figures that they don't need an introduction. Pakistan's mineral sector holds incredible potential waiting to be tapped. Our nation is abundant with reserves of critical minerals integral to the world's accelerated drive towards adopting climate-friendly technologies. In our drive toward becoming a key player in the global minerals landscape, local businesses will play a pivotal role. This discussion today aims to highlight the opportunities for local businesses when stepping into the mining sector. I want to build a little bit on our earlier sessions. Certain themes emerged from those sessions. One is we need to ensure that the discovery of natural resources translates into higher economic growth and human development. There have been parts of the world where there may have been GDP growth, but the human development side was missing. So we have to make sure that happens. Our conversation this afternoon will build on those earlier discussions in which the importance of linkages between mining and the rest of the economy were emphasized. Some of the themes which were discussed earlier were ease of regulatory regime, development of industry clusters, value addition, enhance investments, infrastructure growth, and capacity building. With that, I would like us to delve into this exciting conversation. The format of this session will be a little different from the previous sessions because we have a very large and distinguished panel. So what I would request is that each participant keep their remarks to 4 to 5 minutes, so that we can have one round in which I will be posing a specific question to every panelist, and after that perhaps we can have, time permitting, another round of comments and perhaps a little bit of discussion between the panelists. I would like to begin with Waqar Saab. My question for you is, how do you see the mining sector evolving in Pakistan for social economic development, given the overall global context and its constraints? So, Waqar Saab, please.
Thank you, Masood. So, here is what it is. I'll start from the global scene. Not audible? Is that better?
Yeah, much better, Ji.
Yes.
Better.
Okay. So we are now about 8 billion of us on the globe, and 1 billion people came out of poverty, from the poverty line in China. There's still about 1 billion people out there who live below the poverty line. Now, if you kind of zoom into Pakistan, we are 240 million people. There are swaths of areas in Pakistan where people are below the poverty line, or their areas are not well developed as we have in other provinces. So, overall, globally and in Pakistan, the demographics, the migration, the urbanization, and those things will eventually decide the political and the economic conditions of each country, and also their relations with other countries. Now, we have an opportunity here to socially uplift people who are left behind. And mining offers us an opportunity, because mining and some of the things that we have seen, gold and copper, is of global relevance on the global scene. Why do I say that? Because look at Chile. It is probably about 20 to 25% world's production. And if you look at our reserves today, you could be creating another Chile here in this region. So imagine what it could unlock. Now, what is mining? Mining is like a marathon. It's not like putting up an industry. It takes about 20 to 25 years to do a cycle. Now, imagine if you were to doing a marathon, you would need to know, to complete it successfully, that your track is de-risked. And how do you do that? It's a beautiful concept, and you have to embrace the value of inclusivity. So look, if I take Balochistan, whom does this mineral belong to? It's really the people. If we get this concept right, what they're doing is they're giving you their endowment. Okay, come and develop this endowment. You take something, but there has to be something back to us. And I think that is the right way, the public-private partnership that must be embraced. If you do that, you would require infrastructure, you would require roads, rail links, you would require energy infrastructure, you would require water infrastructure. What does that do? Who is going to build that? We must take the local people in. We must train them, vocational training centers. We would need an army of geological engineers. And I think this is the time where the investment needs to go and involve the local people. If we get this right, it could be a game changer forever for Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you, Waqar Saab. You touched very key points. Inclusiveness, importance of engaging with the community, and it's very important to think of this in the long term. It's a marathon, and the path has to...
If I just want to
Yes,
add some of the good models that we have already built in this country. For example, we do coring at a bigger level in a very remote location. It takes about 3, 4, 5 kilometers to do the quarry and bring the thing in. What we are doing in that remote area, we are providing employment to the local people. We are solarizing their houses. We're bringing water there. We're bringing to get their livestock starting. For my group, we spent about $34 million just to do this across the group. In the last 3 years, that's about 10 billion rupees we have spent on such activities. Then there is another beautiful project, which is SECMEC. I had the privilege to serve Angro's board previously, and I think you have a public-private partnership there, which is really, you don't need to, it's just emulate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Waqar Saab. You mentioned Angro, so we'll go to Riaz Saab next. Riaz Saab, your company has been involved with the Thar mining project, and I'm sure there are very valuable lessons that you've learned that you can share with the audience. So I will ask you, what advice do you have for people involved, who are involved or getting involved in the mineral sector, keeping in view your experience with Thar? And if you can in particular hit on the community inclusiveness aspect, that would be very valuable.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this very important summit. It has been very inspiring to hear all the speakers in the morning and even now. Before I sort of go on to the point about what little we can share from our experience in Thar with the wider mineral mining sector, I just want to touch upon something you said in the beginning about the economic impact. So typically, when you're undertaking mining in any country, at the start, it always seems like a very daunting task. There is skepticism, there is lack of belief. But the good thing is that because of the Thar example, we can actually see the economic impact of it setting in. So 2007 is the time when this project was conceived. If I fast forward to 2023, Thar is producing about 10% of the country's power, and it's saving about $1 billion of foreign exchange every year. Now, I know this is a forward-looking summit, but just for a minute or two, I will kind of look back on what could have been. So in the mid-90s, there was an attempt made to produce power from Thar coal, which kind of didn't work out. If Thar coal had been used for power at that time, then it would have replaced all the furnace oil power plants, all the imported coal power plants, all the LNG power plants. And we would have been saving about $4 billion a year in foreign exchange today. If we go back to the first attempt of Reko Diq, and from what I know, that the ultimate size of export from the first phase, I believe, which we are here to in many ways celebrate, is going to be about $3.5 to $4 billion. Now you add the $4 billion a year saved because of Thar coal to $4 billion that you could have made because of the mineral export, and you come to a number of $8 billion. Your current account deficit for the last 10 years on average has been $5 to $6 billion. I'm not talking about an agriculture revolution, an IT revolution, expansion of mineral mining. I'm talking about two initiatives. These two initiatives would have led to a situation where you would not have had the current account deficit, meaning your currency would have been stronger, your inflation would have been lower, your interest rates to correct the inflation would have been much lower, your cost of business would have been lower, you would have had more investments, those investments would have led to more employment, employment would have led to prosperity. So you can actually connect the dots from these two mining initiatives to the prosperity of the nation. I am not talking about any expansion, I'm only talking about these two things. So the question then becomes that what are the learnings and how was the third dream realized, and what were some of the things that stand out? It started off on the initiative of the government of Sindh, and credit is due there. And they believed that a model of public-private partnership was most suited for it. And that's why the partnership between Engro and government of Sindh took place. But then there's a lot more that happened later on, right? When government of Sindh took this project to, and I'll speak openly, their political opponents, which was the Mian Nawaz Sharif-led PMLN government, they were treated with open arms. The People's Party government of Sindh-led project was included in the CPEC framework. It was provided the sovereign guarantee. And I think if you Google search January 31st, 2014, at the time when this project was inaugurated, you will see Mian Nawaz Sharif standing with Mr. Asif Ali Zardari doing the opening for the Thar project. Later on, even from other state institutions, General Bajwa has visited Thar many times, Army has provided the security network. Organizations like Indus Hospital, like TCF have been at the forefront, and as Waqar Saab very beautifully said, that this is a marathon. You had a set of shareholders who put in patient capital. Whether it was Engro, whether it was Hupco, House of Habib, Lucky Group, Liberty, there are many, Habib Bank, many business groups who put in that money. 2007 is when this project was conceived and started development, and only recently the company gave its first dividend. That is what it takes. These are the kind of projects which change the fate of countries, and they transcend politics. They transcend bureaucratic delays of what is what is under the province, what is under the federal government. They are way beyond drawing room conversations that what is the role of state institutions and such. We have to think beyond it. And I'm very glad to see, especially Dr. Saab, aapki speech maybe, the way we are thinking about developing the mineral mining sector is actually keeping all of this in perspective, and it's good to see. And you've got the example of Thar in front of you. Just last comment, I know I'm probably exceeding my time. What would be really good to see is that presence of Pakistani private sector in mineral mining as well. Because please do keep in mind that with the stewardship of the federal and provincial government, it was the private sector which led Thar's development. Up until now, what we've seen is government-owned organizations, but I really hope that a framework is developed which encourages the local investors to also come forward in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Riaz Saab. You hit on some very important themes and messages. I mean, it's worth noting that the impact of just a couple of projects, how large can it be, and it can really change the financial outlook of Pakistan. And and the other theme which I think is very important is that ease of doing business, that projects move as fast as they can, and there are no unnecessary delays. You mentioned, we talked a little bit about the financial aspects and about the possible role of the private sector. With that, I would like to go to Tabba Saab. Tabba Saab, could you provide us some insights into how private investors perceive the growth potential of Pakistan's mining sector, opportunities that the private sector may be interested in looking at, has looked at?
Sure, thank you. I just want to start by saying that 5 years ago, a group of business houses in Pakistan came together and we formed a company called National Resources Limited. the idea was at that time, that the government of Pakistan got this award of $9 billion penalty, from the from international courts, and that was a big issue, how to settle that. So NRL, and some of the members are already on this podium, which really worked very hard, on the ground level, engaged Antofagasta and Barrick Gold at that time. And we made the entire process, in a way that we made it easier for the government of Pakistan to come and make the deal and settle this issue with Antofagasta. So I think it was not mentioned in this forum, but I think it was a very important role that the private sector played, in resolving this $9 billion penalty. So it's not that it was being done by the government. A private sector-led role was very, very important. The reason we stepped into it, because we saw a great opportunity in the mining sector in Pakistan. It's not been developed, and it's a long way, for the development of mining industry in Pakistan. And Chagi district, which is in Balochistan, has a great potential for mining in copper, gold, and other mineral resources. I would compare this, because the reason I always compare Pakistan mining potential with DRC Congo, because we have a cement factory and I visit Congo a lot, and I got that mining aspiration from Congo actually. That area in Katanga, which produces around 1 million tons of copper and cobalt, and Barrick also operates a very large mine in eastern Congo for the gold. So it's actually the private sector, as we see, the theme is, from dust to development. Without the private sector, this theme is not complete. So private sector has a great and a pivotal role to play in the development in the mining industry. And the reason I say is that we really need to engage the private sector. Private sector is the one who stays in the country. When they invest capital in the country, the return stays in the country. It doesn't flow out of the country as dividends. So all that capital or profits that are generated, by the private sector is all being deployed again in Pakistan. And the reason it's also important is that we also can help government to form right policies. Again, a country which is such rich in resource, which I talked about Congo, even today, half of the population lives below $100. The reason being is, that when you form these policy in hurry, you kind of try not to capture all those points, which should be beneficial for the country. And unless you don't convert this mines and minerals into value addition, which our minister mentioned in the morning, that if you're going to export your slurry, from Balochistan out of Gwadar and not convert that into copper or gold, or you don't deploy the smelting, capability in Pakistan, is going to be wasting our resource, So what really government really has to think about it, that not a single raw material should be exported out of Pakistan. Anything that has to go out of Pakistan has to be converted into value addition. And unless we don't realize this, and after 5 years, we will realize, why didn't we capture this in the earlier policy? I think it'll be too late, because you cannot change the policy, while the investor is already engaged, Yeah. All these things has to be done before the investors, are given license to explore or do the mining. So, and the reason I say, as Gaz also said, that public-private partnership is also very, very important for the development, or not just mining sector in Pakistan, for any large business, which deploys over a couple of billions or, in the tune of $5 to $10 billion. It is important that, big business houses come together. So we pull in capital, we pull in the talent, and we pull in the brains, and the minds, so we can do the project and execute the project in a correct way. So it's a long way for Pakistan. I think private sector is a very vibrant in Pakistan, despite all the challenges, which we have faced in this country. Not only that we are progressing, but also, all these large corporate houses and business houses are also profitable, And if you are profitable, then you can deploy capital. If you don't make profit, you don't have that capability and capacity to do large projects. And some of the people, even on this podium, have done $1 billion plus project in Pakistan, raising capital, through their own means, through their own relationship. And this is possible. It's not that Pakistan doesn't have the capacity or private sector doesn't have the capacity. It's just that the government has to put trust in the private sector, and they have to take us along in the development of this this development of development, which is very important and critical for Pakistan.
Thank you very much, Tabba Saab. You hit on several important points. I'll just mention some of them. The importance of the private sector. In any economy, most of the jobs are created by the private sector, not the government. So we appreciate the role of the private sector. The concept of value addition, cluster development, it is a priority for the government as well. Value addition, capacity building, all very important. Financing is a very important element as well. You mentioned that private groups have been able to raise substantial amount of financing. And on the topic of financing, I would like to turn to Arif Habib Saab, who's one of the most prominent figures in Pakistan's financial markets. Arif Saab, what role can capital markets play in financing new ventures in the country?
Thank you, Masood Dabi Saab. Before I give the specific answer about the role of capital market, I would endorse what Muhammad Ali has said. In fact, we were part of this NRL, and in fact, NRL, there were 5 groups were associated with that: Lucky, Liberty, Mari Petroleum, Fatma, and Arif Habib. And we, in fact, contributed in bringing the parties on table for a negotiated settlement. And I think that was a beginning where I think Antofagasta was paid out, and the Barrick, in fact, decided to come back. And initially, you see, along with the Barrick Gold and the government of Balochistan, this NRL was supposed to be their partner into that. The benefit which, in fact, we were looking by including private sector was, in fact, working with the major partner with them for their right investment strategy and right structure, financial structure of that. But unfortunately, that in fact ultimately didn't materialize. But we are very happy that this has been resolved, and now the project is on track. You see, I also must appreciate here the commitment of all the stakeholders. You see, the government, the finance ministry, the establishment, and all other stakeholders, they were very much committed. And because of their commitment, we in fact have reached to this stage that now Barrick Gold is now starting work on this mine. And similarly, you see in the case of Thar, initially the provincial government, Sindh and the Angro, they got together, and then subsequently they brought other private sector groups with them. And that, I think, all the groups, when we were working on this recording, and in Thar, all the big groups were interested in making investment to these ventures. So there is a lot of appetite and interest in mining sector here in Pakistan. And you see that all these groups and corporations, most of them are listed at the stock exchange. Yes. It means they have the general public stake as well with them. So whenever, in fact, these companies would come to the stock exchange for raising capital, I believe that would be an overwhelming response to them, not only from these large groups, but from the funds, from foreign portfolio investors as well, because we don't have much listed on the stock exchange in this sector. So general public would also be, I think, interested in having a stake in these ventures, because the projections which we in fact were having in that, and the financial structure, and we were also in fact was proposing to get the company listed, because the benefit of getting company listed, that make that investment and security bankable, and the transparency also is ensured in that. So the capital market will definitely, and in the recent period, there is a system of book building in public offerings. That also would also contribute very positively for the contribution of capital market in setting up these mining companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Arif Habib Saab. We hope that you can leverage your previous experience into more opportunities. There are plenty of opportunities that we spoke about earlier in the day, and we hope that groups like yours, Tabba Saab's group, and others can, Mari as well, Fauji, everybody can get into opportunities over here, alongside, perhaps just domestic companies or in partnership with international companies. Thank you very much, Arif Habib Saab. Question for Dr. Zilaf. You're the CEO of English Biscuits, one of the largest private companies. The development of mining will enable business opportunities. Mining will grow our infrastructure, ports, shipping, railways. There'll be cluster development. There'll be skilled consumers from these mining ventures who are customers. What business opportunities do you see for someone who's not necessarily in the mining business right now?
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to everybody. I would first and foremost like to thank the organizers for having all of us here. And in particular, I would like to thank Barrick and Azfar and Ali for creating this platform and forum for all of us to be coming together. And actually, we had an extremely inspiring session since the morning, and all of us feel, so we are talking about from dust to development. And if we really look about what we've been talking about since this morning, we've been talking about nation building, because that is what it entails if we really fulfill the promise of what we have been hearing since this morning. So if I look at it from the perspective of a business, that what you would be referring to is how do businesses grow in an environment. Just a very simple example, if I take my own business as example. So if we are in the business where we are selling SKUs of 25 and 50 rupees and selling 100 billion of that in an environment, and we've doubled the business, been able to double the business in the very challenging environments of the past 3 years. And if I take what we have been told and shared since the morning, and if this is a $7 trillion potential that we have, that we are sitting on, what does that mean for businesses all across the country? What does it mean for businesses of all nature? So that is the avenues when there is business development, which the value chain, down the value chain, it increases. So whatever you can touch or see around you, it's either grown or it is mined. I relate to the grown aspect, which is the agriculture side, which I'm more familiar with. So it's from farm to fork, all across the value chain, whether it is from the farmers to the suppliers to the logistics, to the manufacturing, to the engineering, to the distribution, to the customer. Most importantly, the customer. So what has been my learning that I can apply to from that side to growing of the business value chain in mining? So where we heard in the morning about whether the downstream were the examples of what the downstream businesses have been doing. But I think even more importantly, whether it is infrastructure, whether it is transportation, whether it is IT, most importantly, whether it is human skill development. These, if done consistently and seriously with a long-term policy, can be leapfrogging all of those. And that is, I think, what is an important point to be taking home when we talk about everybody coming together through this one window operation, trying to achieve the same goal. The first, and we are hearing from the private sector here, all of us sitting here, talking about the challenges that have been faced. So it is also a time to be looking at not what the last 70 years, as we spoke about this morning as well, it's 70 years that the country could have been doing much better in, but to make the next 70 years different, what are the learnings from all that we have been talking about since this morning? I mean, whether we just heard about the experiences of a few of the businesses here. If we even look at energy and if we look at the circular debt, we look at where does all of that begin from? It comes from the point of short-termism. So what it requires is a longer-term view, a longer-term policy, consistency in what is happening, and giving the opportunity, the trust, and fulfilling the promise like we do with our brands to your consumer. So the opportunities are immense, and we have nothing but positivity towards the unlocking of the potential that is out there. How that happens will have to be a partnership between the private and the public sectors, and what it should lead to is development of the communities, development of the Human Development Index, inclusivity, and across the board examples being shared of what it can and has led to. So if you look at global examples, it again goes both ways. Chile, when I was speaking to the gentleman from Barrick, Chile was an example of how it is one of those countries where they have been able to, with the mining industry, prosper, right? So there are examples that go the other way too. But so in the end, it's a matter of, it's in our hands whether it can go from exploitation to total transformation. And that's what I think all of us here are about. And I think there is enough potential in this industry and in this country that we can make this into a success story.
Thank you, Dr. Zilaf. Our potential is immense, our resources are immense. We just have to do things in the right way. And we hope that by doing things the right way, we'll be able to accelerate our economic growth and achieve our human development objectives.
Yes, and the devil will be in the detail, because as was also mentioned, it's about, so when you're talking about foreign investment, which is exactly what we need, but looking into what is going to be happening with your outflows and what is going to be happening 20 years hence or 30 years hence, which is the job of the people who are sitting there making these plans to be looking at and doing now to make sure that in the end it is about nation building.
Thank you, Madam. I want to talk a little bit more about how the private sector will be looking at opportunities. So I will turn to Shahbaz Malik Saab as a businessman and as someone who is in multiple areas. What are your major considerations? What are the major considerations you would consider when assessing the potential of going into a new sector such as mining?
Assalamu alaikum. So, Mr. Saab, thank you so much. तो बहुत मसला ये होता है आखिरी सवाल जब आता है ना तो बहुत सारे बात लोग कह चुके होते हैं, so it's very difficult to add on to it. Having said that, the first word is learning. For Pakistan entrepreneur, a new dimension has just been added, which we simply cannot ignore: mining. It will give us an opportunity to work in services areas as an infrastructure support function, which we can provide in the beginning. But going forward, let me give you an example of our experience. I come from pharmaceutical industry. So 30 years ago, 80% of the Pakistan pharmaceutical share was held by multinationals. Today, 80% is held by local companies. So down the line, in coming years, we as entrepreneurs will learn and will also become world mining companies in time to come. And there's no stopping because we have got our presence on the ground. So that is what the vision is. In the shorter run, of course, there will be several opportunities in the service areas, in the infrastructure support areas, so which will come. One more addition which I would like to suggest to our policymakers is that we need to develop our human resource, which Barrick has, Mark mentioned in his opening speech, that there are a lot of exchange programs which they're going to do by sending personnel to different locations, especially students. But I would say there should be a special contact with our universities, and they should develop special programs, special degrees, special courses in mining sector. And there should be exchange programs for our students who can go and work into the areas, and then we'll have cross-pollination. So these are the few words in which I will say that I see those as an opportunity, not for only as an entrepreneur, but for the business community and for Pakistan at large. Thank you.
Shahbaz Saab, thank you very much. I will now, I would like to get a little bit of insight on how international companies, the experience of international companies in Pakistan. Paracha Saab, since you represent the Overseas Chamber, how should international companies be looking at investment prospects in Pakistan, and what makes Pakistan an attractive destination for them?
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I was asked to basically tell why Pakistan and why foreign investment should be looking at coming to Pakistan. Let me share a bit of statistics because I'm going to be speaking from the platform of Overseas Chamber. So Overseas Chamber has around 209 companies across 14 different sectors from 35 different countries. Generated around $60 billion of gross revenue last year alone. Out of these 209 companies, 50 companies are Fortune 500 companies that are already operating in Pakistan, and 55 of these companies are actually listed on Pakistan Stock Exchange. So you can imagine that already there are a lot of foreign investors actually operating and investing in Pakistan. Now, as we all know that foreign direct investment is very important, critical for Pakistan in order to lift from the current economic crisis. And Overseas Chamber is considered to be the first port of call when it comes to the foreign direct investment in Pakistan. Now, just to basically give you a statistic that in the last 10 years, these 209 companies have actually invested more than $22 billion in Pakistan alone, which actually is more than the FDI that actually has come in outside Overseas Chamber. So you can imagine that the confidence the companies are already showing into the country is a lot more than any other outsider are actually showing. What is also basically important to share is that not only this, these foreign investors are actually contributing 1/3 to the government exchequer. So last year, the government collected around 6 trillion rupees, out of which 2 trillion rupees of taxes were only contributed by the overseas investment companies. And I think so these statistics are good enough to give confidence to any new investor looking at Pakistan that why they should actually come and invest into this country, because they're already very, very successful stories. There are companies which actually are as old as the country itself, who actually started investing since 1947. I think so what's one area which we have been talking about since morning is that one area we have always discussed that we really need to improve and work upon ease on doing business. And I think so with this introduction of a Special Investment Facilitation Council, I'm quite hopeful that this single window operation is going to make investment very easy for the foreign investors to come and actually operate with ease into this country. And lastly, I think so, Tabbas has talked about and Riaz has talked about is the involvement of private sector into all these new initiatives. We know the story from our neighboring country in 1991. And what actually was the one stroke that really worked for them? They liberalized their economy. They made private sector to actually play a very, very active role in really lifting the economy. I think this is one missing piece that really need to basically work on this. There are a lot of government officials sitting here, and I think so this is one area I would like them to actually focus. And I think so one last thing, this is a country which gives unrestricted ownership. It gives, allows foreign hiring. It allows unrestricted repatriation of funds. There's no minimum capital requirement. It has double tax treaty with over 64 countries in the world. It has significant skilled labor. We've already talked a lot about what's the size of prize when it comes to minerals, which is 6 trillion. And I think so the huge youth bulge. So when you come to this country, please do invest from the long-term perspective. It definitely pays off, and it pays off big.
Thank you so much, Paracha Saab. I think it's very important for international companies to know that other international companies have been working in Pakistan for over 70 years, and they have thrived. And there are various protections which have been available to them. And now the environment is even better with recently enacted policies and frameworks. So thank you very much, Paracha Saab. Last but not least, Fahim Saab, we are almost out of time, I'm told. But your views, what is the oil and gas company doing in mining, and what sort of inspired Mari's diversification into the mining sector? And I know we are in mining as well, so.
Thank you, Mr. Saab. Being part of this panel, feeling very privileged. So, I think E&P companies all over the world are moving towards energy transition. And MPCL, Mari Petroleum being no different. We also want to be part of this energy transition. We want to contribute towards the climate change and reduction of carbon emissions. We feel that the world would need cleaner energy and greener vehicles to meet the targets of net zero by 2050. And the minerals like lithium and copper and nickel are going to be essential to meet those targets, because most of the clean energy technologies like wind turbines, like transmission systems, as well as electric vehicles, all of them require these minerals. Their demand is on the rise, their supply is limited, and I think that creates an opportunity for us to look at diversifying into mining. Why in Pakistan we think we are best placed to do that? We have transferable skills in the E&P sector, which we can easily translate into develop the mining sector here in Pakistan. We feel that we are best placed because of our experience, our know-how, our presence in Balochistan, and our technical skills, and the strong balance sheet to be able to contribute to the development of mining in Pakistan. We want to be the partners of choice for the international investors because of all these reasons I have just described. As far as they are serious and committed towards the technology transfer and the development of local expertise in the country. Last but not least, mining projects fit very well once they are successfully developed because they provide a long-term returns. They fit very well with the social agenda of our sponsors and shareholders. And this is another driver which is contributing to our decision to look into mining. Thank you.
Thank you, Fahim Saab. It's a very important point that you said that for oil and gas companies, energy transition is a very important part of their strategy. And mining, because of critical minerals involved in energy transition, it is a possible fit for oil and gas companies, and especially given the growth opportunities in Pakistan. I'm told that we are, Sidra, do we have a little bit of time? We don't have time. I mean, it would have been great to have another round, but we are out of time. But if anyone wants to make some very quick remarks.
Yeah, just one observation. I'm thankful the minister is here. In fact, he stole the show this morning. So we just had to be additive to what you said. But there is one aspect which I think the point was very well made, and I'm a vociferous supporter where private sector must come in, because it's the private sector that's going to hold the hand of the foreign investor, and that will be the real partnership. But more importantly is this point. So if you take RECO, $5 to $6 billion project, if you take the funding that is required, just to give you a scale and sense of what the funding needs to be, it will be north of about $3 to $4 billion. Okay, if not 4, then at least $3 billion. Now, to do a $3 billion is not, you don't have the capacity locally because you have to pay what you import. And therefore, it's very important that we start planning how do we tap bringing funding in. And funding will not be easy for us. To me, that looks a big challenge. So to me, that is one point that perhaps we may need a separate deliberation. Maybe how do you do those financial close for large slugs of capital? Because it's not just RECO, it will be even the private sector that will need a lot of funding. And there is also, I think we have to focus on the infrastructure to make it as green as possible, to make sure, because it's easy to get green funding in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Waqar Saab. Anybody else? We can wrap up. We covered, I think
the harmonizing and humanizing.
We covered, actually in this session, we covered a range of topics, and we covered so much we could have a whole day session on just how the local business community, Pakistani companies, can do in the mining sector. But I thank all the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I request this panel to please come together for a group photograph? May I also request Senator Dr. Musaddiq Malik to please join us up on stage for this panel photograph, please. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Masood Saab, I have a few things of yours here. Ladies and gentlemen, what a wonderful day it has been, and I'm sure this panel has added a lot more to your thought bank, and you must be reflecting on some of the ideas shared over here. I think it's absolutely spot on to think about value addition. I think Tabbasab made a very valid point when he said that we need to be we can't be myopic about our policy framework at this point in time and just look at the low-hanging fruits and the immediate returns. We need to have an outlook that is going to be taking us forward in the many decades to go. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now segueing into our final session for the day. May I request everyone to be seated, as this is a ministerial dialogue and we have the wonderful panel already here with us. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, may I request you to kindly be seated as we now segue into our final panel discussion. This is the Ministerial Dialogue on Sustainable Governance and Mineral Development. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an industry leader and a subject expert moderating this wonderful panel. Please put your hands together to welcome the Chief Executive Officer of Barrick Gold Corporation, Dr. Mark Bistro, who will be moderating this panel. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mark Bistro, the Chief Executive Officer of Barrick Gold Corporation. May I request you to please take the stage as the moderator of this next panel. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you to please be seated so we may continue with our panel conversations. This is the final one for the evening. May I request all our distinguished delegates to please take their seats. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you all to kindly be seated. We are going to be beginning shortly. We're just waiting for one of our panelists to be joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to be getting into our final conversation, and this is a ministerial dialogue. Anything that has to really operate and move forward, and that future that we are working towards, that vision that we are working towards, requires a synergy. So let's see, when we talk about the regulatory regime and the policy framework, to really take into consideration not just the present reality, but of course the future of the world and the future of the region, what is actually happening in these meetings and what is the idea and the thought behind it. For the panel discussion titled as the Ministerial Dialogue on Sustainable Governance and Mineral Development, please put your hands together to welcome our wonderful panel. First and foremost, may I take this opportunity of inviting the Federal Minister of Planning, Development and Special Initiatives, Professor Dr. S.N. Malik Saab, to please come on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to Professor Dr. S.N. Malik. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Dr. S.N. Iqbal Sahab, the Federal Minister of Planning, Development and Special Initiatives, Pakistan. May I request you to please take a seat in the panel. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Senator Dr. Musaddiq Malik, the Minister of State for Petroleum Division, Ministry of Energy, Pakistan. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Abdul Rahman Al-Belushi, the Assistant Deputy Minister for Mining Enablement, Ministry of Industry and Mineral Resources, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Ladies and gentlemen, we were to also be joined by the Deputy Minister of Energy, Azerbaijan, Mr. Kamal Abbasov. I believe he's here. Let's have a big round of applause for him as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we will soon be joined by our moderator, the Chief Executive Officer of Barrick, Dr. Mark Bistro. But you really stole the show, Dr. Musaddiq, in the morning as you spoke with a lot of passion. And people have been wondering about the harmonization and, more importantly, the humanization of the process. So as we move towards sustainable governance, could you apprise our audience about some of the bottlenecks that you feel are there that this government and specifically the SIFC is focused upon taking away? And that was a paper C complimentary question. We have now been joined by our wonderful moderator. So feel free. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Dr. Mark Bistro.
Right, sorry about that. It's been a rush day and hope you've enjoyed the conference, everyone. So our discussion today now is regulations and regulatory control. As you know, most of you from Pakistan understand cricket. And I remember somebody explaining cricket as a game that you have 11 people in and 2 people in and 2 people out and 9 people out and 11 people in. And so it's quite complicated, as you can imagine, like mining, and but you need some rules. And if you get the rules right, the game of cricket usually works. And for Saudi Arabia, I think the important one is soccer now, or golf even. And so all these team sports need proper regulations or rules. And And I think as generous as the Minister was this morning about the red carpet, it's also important that any mining investments come with clear rules and responsibilities so that the people ultimately can benefit. And so as an introduction, I know that all four gentlemen here have probably forgotten more than I know about regulations, governments, and politics. So I'm not going to venture there. But I am going to say that to attract investment, the most important thing is clarity of the rules and the fact that they don't change a lot. And I would also add that for me, an experience of watching Saudi Arabia introduce mining legislation and seek to get the best advice and deliver something that is completely created for mining rather than in many occasions like many other countries, get seduced by the history of oil and mix it. That's a great segue to start. So I'm going to ask each panel to say a few words on what they think is important in developing a foundation for a healthy, successful and sustainable mining industry. So, Honourable Minister of Petroleum for Pakistan, being that you're the kingmaker here, I'll get you to start.
Well, the truth is that I don't have answers to all the questions. I can tell you a few things from my experience. I think any regulation that doesn't stop the elite capture is useless. I think any regulation that does not create level playing field is useless and burdensome. I think any regulation that doesn't take us towards sustainability of our communities, of our environment, is useless. So it's not the number of rules or regulations. It's not even the regulatory framework. It's the organizing principles behind the rules and regulations that matter. And the way I have seen it, and the way I have experienced it, I've laid out the three things that stand in the way of equitable development in Pakistan. And I promise you, like many opportunities that we've had, this opportunity would also be lost if we don't create these frameworks in absolute terms. So this is my biggest fear. I want the communities to develop. I want the communities to develop with mining. And in fact, I would like the communities to develop. Please welcome Thar Saab on the stage. So having these organizing principles down, just 3 or 4 and no more, I would like to say that what we need to do is make sure that everyone gets an opportunity, and most of all the community. And I think the regulatory framework has to ensure that schools come before the first shovel, that the clinics come before the first shovel. So we are obviously interested in mining and value addition and all the things that I spoke about, but the custody of these assets is with the people, and people who are disenfranchised. So they have to own it, and I'm very grateful to Barrick Gold because they believe in it. So we found a partner in them who is moving in this direction. They've already had, I guess, 2 schools open already, and the big shovel has not gone in. They already have an alliance with Indus Hospital, and they're setting up clinics there, and the big shovel has not gone in. Not 1 ounce of copper has been extracted, and the schools are already in place, and the skills development programs are already in place. Out of 180 people who've been hired, about 90 are Baloch, and the CEO is Baloch. And this is the only way it's going to be, through community ownership. Let the community be the protector of the asset. So that's the first thing, beyond regulations. The second is indigenization. I have friends with whom I was discussing yesterday, I don't see him, I wanted to recognize him, who firmly believe, what about the indigenous people? What about the indigenous companies, the private sector? My friends who were sitting here were just talking about the private sector. They won't have a chance in hell unless we create a framework which requires and mandates the indigenous component, the local component, and the growth in local component, and not just the crappy growth in local component, but the meaningful value-added growth in local component. So that is very close to our heart. We'd like to have the experiences that many countries have had, the hub and spoke model, where the large enterprise serves as the hub, and all of the suppliers are the spokes. Saudi Arabia has done it for its own growth model and its own companies and people to come up. And my friend, inshallah, would talk a little bit about it, where you have service level agreements that improve every year. And with every improvement of the service level agreement, the performance and the productivity and the ingenuity and the innovation of the local companies increases. And this is how you lift a society, this is how you lift a country, this is how you lift a community. And then finally, green. We're looking at sustainable sources of energies. We're looking at geothermal, we're looking at green energy in the way of solar, in the way of wind. These are enormous deserts, hot as hell. And how much more energy can there be when it's hot as hell and a desert? So we're going to tap into the desert. We're going to tap into the endowment that God has given us. And we're going to translate into everything green, everything sustainable, everything community, all things people is what this mining revolution is going to be about. And that's what a regulatory regime is going to protect.
So who's going to follow that one? Minister, you've got some oil experience. Maybe you can help us.
Thank you very much, Mark. Your Excellency, dear ladies and gentlemen, to begin, let me express my gratitude to the government of Pakistan, especially to His Excellency Mr. Musaddiq Malik for the shown hospitality and the kindness. Indeed, in great pleasure for me to be with you in Islamabad to participate in Pakistan Mineral Investment Summit. You know, after the His Excellency Musaddiq Malik, it's very difficult to have a speech because his reports, his conclusions is very strong. I would like to briefly inform you about my country. It's Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is rich in oil and gas, natural gas, and we have the reserves, approximately 7 billion barrels of oil, 2.6 trillion cubic meter of gas. The big field of Azerbaijan in oil is Azeri Chirag Gunashli, which we have. We signed this contract in 1994 with 11 companies. We have good transportation system. We have the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, which carries oil from the ACG field across Azerbaijan, Georgia, and reaches Ceyhan terminal located in Mediterranean coast in Turkey. Also, we have two pipelines which go our oil to the Black Sea. Last year, oil production in Azerbaijan was 32.6 million tons, and approximately 26.3 million tons of this volume was exported. It is estimated that this year the oil production will be around 30 million tons. Our country became a new exporter of natural gas in 2027 with the startup Shahdanis field. In 2022, the natural gas production in Azerbaijan was around 46.7 and 27.6 BCM of volume exported to Europe. It's approximately 11.4. To Turkey, 8.4, and to Georgia 2.8. This year we plan that the oil gas production will be approximately 48, and after 1 year it will be 50 BCM. We also have the good potential of the renewable energy. We have the ambitious that to expand share of renewable energy in electricity capacity to 30% by 2030 from the current 17%. The total capacity of ongoing projects, including solar and wind power in Azerbaijan, is approximately 710 megawatt. I would like to also mention about the relations between the Pakistan and Azerbaijan. Sorry I take the time, but it's necessary to tell you that the relations between Pakistan and Azerbaijan are built on the shared history, culture, and religious beliefs, as well as solidarity and mutual support. We have relations which are relations between the brothers. We immensely appreciate the support of Pakistan to Azerbaijan through the 44-day patriotic war of 2020. We are pleased with the current state of Azerbaijan-Pakistan relations, which raised to the level of strategic partnership. Azerbaijan always support and will continue to support Azerbaijan in every direction. In order to improve the strong political relations of two nations, the agreement of energy cooperation between governments of the Republic of Azerbaijan and government of Republic of Pakistan was signed in Islamabad in 2017. Recently, agreement between our countries was signed on the field of LNG supply to Pakistan. This agreement aims to develop energy cooperation to improve economic growth between the two countries. In the context of energy cooperation between our nations, activity of Azerbaijan is not limited with the LNG supply to Pakistan. Azerbaijan has also supplied petrochemical products, urea fertilizers to Pakistan, and in the coming future, the export volumes can be expanded. In addition, there is ongoing discussions between relevant bodies of our countries regarding possible cooperation in field of oil refineries. There is also possibility to engage in exploration of oil and gas structure in Pakistan after receiving relevant information. Besides, from the cooperation in energy sectors, there are opportunities for our relevant companies in the mining sector to collaborate as well. Natural resources such as minerals, of course, including oil and gas, are the property of the citizens of a country. It is important to carefully produce these limited resources with efficient regulatory frameworks established by the government. This is essential for the economic growth and social progress of the country. I would like to once again to share the joy of being here with you to participate in Pakistan Mineral Investment Summit. Moreover, I would like to thank His Excellency once again, Mr. Musaddiq Malik, and his team for organizing this important summit. I wish you every success in your future endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. So now, Minister from Saudi, maybe you can share some of your experiences, a new experience.
Sure. Thank you very much, and I would like to thank you very much. I'd like to thank you, Your Honourable Minister, for hosting us here today in a great event. It's really a pleasure to be here among you all, and it was prepared, developed in no time. It really showcased the will of the Pakistani people. It is to answer the question of regulation. Our role at the end of the day, we're public servants. Yes, the customer is the investors, Mr. Mark, but our final customer is the citizen. It's the people that are living in cities and villages, and we need to serve them. And when we looked at the mining law and developing the regulation around it, we had to optimize a function that had three variables. The first is the economic returns. Second is social returns for the people. And the third is environmental losses and environmental damages. You want to mitigate one and enhance the others. And to take that into legal clauses, you work with all the best in the world, you copy and paste, you steal shamelessly, and you try to adopt these experiences to yours. So what we ended up with was a very performance-based system in terms of economic returns. So we reduce the royalty if the material and the commodity will stay in country. We give 5-year royalty holiday from the day the mining license was given, so that the miner is incentivized to develop the mine faster. However, we're very prescriptive when it comes to social requirements. We're very prescriptive when it comes to environmental standards and qualifications. We detail each step of the way. And with that, when we look at our mines today, we look at our major phosphate development that's happening up in the north, and Taref city, and that's a city near the border, very similar to Rekodek. It's near different borders, it's near Jordan and Iraq, Rekodek is near Iran and Afghanistan. And these cities, these remote villages usually are crime inhibited, smugglers, lack of jobs, they're very away from the center of these countries. So how to develop it, how to increase it? And Ma'aden at the time, they've developed schools, universities, infrastructure, and adjacent economies to support the phosphate industry. And that phosphate rock that's worth $50 per ton was developed step by step to be fertilizers at $500 per ton. And that was done by His Excellency, the Vice Minister at the time used to be the CFO and the CEO of Ma'aden Company. And if you take another example, another great example, we have Jabal Sayed example, which is a great mine that started development and production. And I'm not saying this because you're standing investigating us, but I'm saying this as a true fact and a true success story. That you have a mine that's now being fully operated by Saudis, from mine geologists, mining engineers, are all Saudis, with the training of Saudis. Mark perhaps is doing it to enhance the sustainability of the mine, to make sure that there are, even if lockdowns happen, the Saudis are there to run it. However, it's very beneficial to us. And in every auction, in every licensing round we hold, we see Ma'aden and Barrick getting very high scores because of their social experience in making sure the development of the mine also takes into consideration the development of the people around the mine.
Thank you, Minister. I think those were very wise words, and again, one of the primary drivers of mining is, it's, as the Minister said, was the development, because it develops the economy. Mines are not there forever. So it's very important that we share the value we create, not only with the central government treasury, but back into those communities, so that when the mine closes, the economic engine continues to run. There's no better example than Johannesburg in South Africa. It was, if you wanted to build a city, you wouldn't do it in Johannesburg. It's very far from the sea, it's high altitude and no water. But today it's one of the biggest metropolitan areas in Africa. Why? Because of the gold mines. The gold mines are finished now, to your point, Minister, and Johannesburg still continues. So, and there are many examples like that across the globe. So, thank you for your wisdom, and that's very important. Our next panelist will be talking a little bit more about his experience. Minister, so over to you.
Thank you very much. I think where I would like to start from is that you have heard many nice things in the morning session. And I think if you go to any part of the world, every developing country is making a similar sales pitch. And they are trying to attract investors to come and invest in those countries. But investment does not go everywhere where someone is making a sales pitch. So as it has been pointed out that any foreign investor would look towards certain policy parameters, whether there is stability there is security, how is there continuity of policy, legal framework, and all sorts of things. So what I would like to say is that, whatever we said in the morning session is not something theoretical framework. We have already proven this, that we are capable of doing this. On 5th of July 2013, we signed an MOU with China to start China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And to many skeptics, it looked like a very distant dream. People thought that it was some kind of a myopic idea that cannot be realized. But within a span of 3 to 4 years, we were able to materialize more than $25 billion worth of investment in Pakistan. And under CPEC, we also made one of the major breakthroughs in mining sector, that is in Thar, where we had a huge coal deposit that was sitting for many years, whose energy value is probably equivalent to the oil reserves in Saudi Arabia and Iran. And it is good to go for us for next 400 years. For 70 years, it could not be tapped, primarily for want of investment as well as technology. But under China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, we were able to manage and get the investment as well as the technology. And today, Thar coal has become one of the leading examples of sustainable governance and mineral development. We made sure that we do not repeat the mistakes we made in the development of natural gas fields. Unfortunately, from Balochistan, where we discovered gas deposits and we used this gas for development of the country, there was very little payback to the local areas and to the local people, and that created a lot of mistrust on use of these natural resources. But in Thar, from very beginning, we made sure that the local communities also share the dividends of development. As a result, today, as it was pointed out in one of the talks, I guess, that in Thar today you have not just education, health for the local communities, but it is the local community which is working as in engineering section, in other managerial positions, and local women are driving those heavy trucks from the coal mine. So that is now one proof or one example how we have been able to demonstrate that how sustainable governance and mineral development can go hand in hand, in which all stakeholders can benefit. Now that was a project which was initiated by provincial government in partnership with a private company, and federal government provided the sovereign guarantee as well as it ensured that it gets the investment under CPEC. So all the stakeholders worked very closely and they made sure that the local population were also part of the development. So this is, I think, the important dimension in mineral development. We are far away from those times where citizens were uninformed. Now, with the information revolution, citizenry all over the world is very well informed what's happening, what are the concessions other countries are enjoying, what are the facilities different mine development companies are giving to people in communities in different places. So the new youth or the new media has made a global information space in which everything is shared. So that actually makes aspirations of the people, regardless whether they live in Pakistan or they live in Africa or they live in Latin America, very similar. They all want good quality of life. They all want good return for the resources of their area. So I think that is an important thing. Now what I would like to say is that, as I said, that we have done it under CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. We were able to put more than 8,000 megawatts of energy projects within a short span of 3 to 4 years. We were able to construct 2,000 kilometers of motorways and highways within a span of 3 to 4 years. We were able to lay down almost 900 kilometer fiber optic cable, again within that short span of time. Now that demonstrates the capability of Pakistani state to be able to meet this challenge of harnessing foreign investment for development of its economy. So if now we have started this journey on mineral development, I can assure you that the whole of government will stand behind this, and just as we were able to provide conditions for investors under China-Pakistan Economic Corridor to come to Pakistan and do these projects successfully, we will learn from those lessons and try to do even a better job. Now this Special Investment Facilitation Council that has been set up is a step in that direction. This is a special dispensation which ensures vertical and horizontal integration of decision making in the country. By vertical, I mean from federal government to provincial government to local government, the whole of federal and provincial and local administrative infrastructure is at one place. And by horizontal integration, we have brought all the federal agencies as well as civil and military departments in one place. So this vertical horizontal integration of decision making, I think, will greatly facilitate one-stop shop concept for the investors, and we will be able to resolve their problems with great speed. So finally, I would say that, we have now also shown and demonstrated how fast we can turn around things. In 2013, when we came into government, country was facing an acute crisis of energy. You all know, Pakistani businessmen are well familiar that we had 16 to 18 hours of power shortages. During 67 years, we were able to put up almost maximum 18,000 megawatts of power in the country. But within 4 years, we put up additional 11,000 megawatts of energy, which includes 8,000 megawatts under CPAC. And by 2018, we had zero energy shortage in the country. So that is again a proof that, when we had this Vision 2025 in 2014, and we set the target that we will be among the top 25 economies of the world. So many questioned our wisdom. But by 2017, PricewaterhouseCoopers made a projection that if Pakistan continues on this trajectory, by 2030 it would be in the top 20 economies of the world. Unfortunately, later on, the political changes disrupted that journey, but now we are again reviving the same momentum and same speed. Hopefully, we should be on track. We have done a 5E framework for the future development of Pakistan, in which the first E focuses on 5 areas, which is exports. Pakistan's key challenge is that in 75 years, we have not been able to develop a very robust export sector. As a result, we consume more dollars and we are not able to earn as many dollars. So therefore, we are now focusing on agriculture, industry, mining, IT, and manpower sectors to be the export engines for future, so that we can have foreign exchange to finance our development. Pakistan. Pakistan has a great opportunity in terms of its youth advantage, demographic advantage. We are building modern state-of-the-art digital infrastructure so that our youth can fully leverage the opportunities, and we have high advantage in terms of very economical cost of our human resource, and we hope in 10 years Pakistan should be an information power by leveraging the talent and the creativity of our youth. Third is environment, in which we are focusing, that involves the climate change challenge. And as you know, last year we faced one of the worst climate disasters. So that actually again brings the issue of sustainable governance as makes it very important. So in this we are focusing on food and water security. Fifth, E is about energy. We are making a very fast transition towards green energy and reducing our dependence on imported fuel so that we can make our energy more affordable and also efficient. And finally is about equity and empowerment. If fruits of development are not shared by everyone, if there is inequality, well, that path of development cannot be very sustainable. So therefore, we have started a program as an affirmative action program for 20 poorest districts of Pakistan to uplift them so that, everyone shares the fruit of development. And incidentally, most of the mineral potential of Pakistan lies in the underdeveloped area. So we sort of suffer from that, paradox of plenty or resource curse, as they say, that most of the places where there were minerals, those countries or regions have remained underdeveloped for lack of investment, lack of proper governance frameworks. So incidentally, in Pakistan also, places where we have maximum opportunity for mineral development happen to be some of the very underdeveloped areas. So therefore, investing there in the communities, investing there in the people so that they also share the fruits of development becomes very important. So let me in the end just say that Pakistan is committed to realizing this dream, and I would just say that Pakistan is ready. Are you ready?
Thank you, Minister, for that. And I'll just make two comments. One is exactly to your point, and that's what Saudi Arabia did, is they recognized they've got oil and gas, but it was the metals that drove the development, the upliftment of those communities you refer to. And I think that's your point about challenging the administration politics to ensure that you develop your minerals for the benefit of everyone. I think I'd take this opportunity as well is, regulations is one thing. Understanding and education is also important as part of this. And it would be remiss of me not to point out that the press is the mouth of the people. And we invited them here today, and they've opined on all our pontifications. And again, without the press and the ability to communicate to the nation, we as politicians and investors will be doing a disservice to this country. So, and I would finish by saying, one thing I learned very quickly is we always think that shareholders are the only key stakeholders of any company. In mining, the host country is as important as shareholders, and we need to work together in that public-private partnership, and then we'll get it right. To Minister of Petroleum's point, you build a road, you start an economy. You build a railway line, you start an economy. And with that, I'll pass on to our final speaker. So you're going to talk from your... You're good.
Yeah. Don't mind coming there. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala Rasul al-Kareem. Well, I have not attended the whole day. Please excuse me if I repeat anything which has already been shared or discussed, but I'll try to be very brief. I know you had a very tiring but busy day and very fruitful. Professor Asif Iqbal Sahab is here, and so is Dr. Musaddiq Malik. They both have discussed with you and shared technicalities of the minerals and mines subject. We have our Honorable
worthy guests from Saudi Arabia, from Azerbaijan, and also Mr. Mark Bristow, who has now a stake in Pakistan. It was wonderful to see Musaddiq Malik Sahab asking him whether he got already Pakistan nationality. So I'm not sure. It looks like it's between the Petroleum Minister and the investor whether he has already got a passport in pocket. But I'll find out later what is the reality. Anyway, let me share a few things. I think I would like to, as I said, instead of going through the number of minerals we have, I remember 92. The ones we can use is 52. So all this information, I'm sure, is now by now you might have heard since morning repeatedly. I just simply come to the point that, on building on what Arsenic Valsam has said, you see this country has shown great resilience in the past. It is our own mistake and faults that we keep having cycles of good performance and bad performance. For example, we had 2013 Pakistan declared macroeconomic unstable country with the prediction of going to be default within 6 to 7 months. It's before general elections. It's documented. So we won the election. Our political party won the election. We started our business within 3 years, and it was predicted that Pakistan needs 12 to 15 years to be out of that quagmire. Now, within 3 years, we reached to a point where just Arsenic Valsa was quoting that we reached 24th economy of the world. We are projected to be 18th economy by 2030 and part of G20 Premier Club, and then by 2015, 16th economy of the world. So you see, this is the potential Pakistan has. And you might have seen over last 1 year, obviously, we have passed through a turbulent phase. But, all that, the lowest inflation, I'm talking 2016-17, lowest food inflation 2%, CPI 4%, 6% GDP growth, and stock market best in South Asia and 5th best in the world, and most stable currency. You see, these are the indicators. If you show and perform in a Western world, I think, they would never let you go out of the governance. But, we had some political instability in this country, and that led to where we landed ourselves in 5 years, 47th economy of the world. Now, this is sad, but the country has resolved. You saw that even at the cost of a very difficult decision, a political heavy cost, the political parties of this country, barring one, they decided to, go for the state and not for politics. And I think this was a wonderful decision last year, and it has already taken the country out of the quagmire it was in. The turbulence is over. And why I'm saying this thing? Number one, we are already, reserves are at a very decent level already. The forex reserves have risen to around 14 billion. It has touched as low as 8 billion of the national reserve. The KSE index has crossed after 2 years 48,000 mark, though it was 54,000 in 2017. The SPA has been signed, which has been the debate over last 10 months with the IMF. It is a standby agreement for 9 months, and the upfront payment has been released to Pakistan, 1.2 billion. The remaining 700,000 in November, 7 million in November, inshallah this year, and February next year, the balance 1.2 billion. So the country is on track. The actions which were prior actions required had already been delivered to IMF. And since some journalist just asking this morning while I was leaving this room that whether any commitments were there for delivery in July. Yes, there were 2 commitments, both delivered already, well before 31st of July. So we are well on track, and we will continue to be on track, because I think this is something which the prudent decision has been taken, and we are moving on. Yesterday you saw that there is no increase in policy rate. It remains, and I expect in the next couple of years the CPI, which was 38 just few weeks back, 38% and came down to, in May, 29%. The core inflation, mind you, is still 17% in rural areas and 19% in urban. That is more relevant from the inflation and Menghai point of view. So the projection of our economic team is in 2 years, this core inflation will dip to 7%, inshallah. So obviously this will drive the policy rate down. We are moving on towards the right direction. We are enabling the investors through some very serious actions recently. Number one, we have tabled a law in the National Assembly. It has been passed. It will be moving tomorrow to the Senate, Pakistan Sovereign Wealth Fund. Now, you have seen some countries had turbulent time like we had, and the latest one I can quote Egypt and Indonesia. Now, both came up with Sovereign Wealth Fund, and they're doing well. Egypt is a little bit slow, but Indonesia has done, I would say, wonderfully well. So we have decided to set up a fund because you see Pakistan is asset solvent country. This is very important. You have been seeing all the way this morning the figure of 6 trillion, the mineral reserves of Pakistan, $6 trillion, not rupees. Now, what is the debt of Pakistan? $100 billion. What is the debt, public debt and liabilities external? $130 billion. So we are asset solvent. So, don't get surprised when I always used to say in the last 10 months, any institution or no institution, Pakistan will not default. And I meant it. And we proved that Pakistan will not default because we are asset solvent and it's only a matter of financial management. So we have gone forward to set up this fund under an Act of Parliament. It could have been under corporate structure, but it's better that if it's Act of Parliament because it's more acceptable globally. We will have sub-funds under this fund. We'll have agriculture for green revolution, a sub-fund. We will have, if need be, we'll have mineral and mines funds. You see, it depends. Some friendly countries are interested to invest in Pakistan in these areas. We will have IT fund. So I think the move forward would be that it's investor choice. They want to come in a sovereign fund, a sub-fund of a sovereign fund. They're most welcome. They want a corporate structure, special vehicle. They're most welcome. So we'll offer any the mod they would like to be, investing in. I'm sure that, with these facilities and again at the cost of a little repetition, we have already got a core body, which is, this special, investment, this facilitation committee. I think it's going to be, another great help to the investors. Because, the one window facilitation which they expect should be given to them. There are some improvements in certain provinces. We have done a little better in the ease of doing business as per the World Bank Index. We are probably one of the best reformers in the last couple of years. So I'm sure that will also ease out the things. So what is our goal? Our goal is to attract investors. The assets are there. By the way, you have been seeing the minerals and all this thing asset. When I talk of assets of Pakistan, when I say Pakistan is hugely asset solvent, I mean it. One gas pipeline system in Pakistan, which is one of the largest in the world, alone is worth $40 to $50 billion. So, talking and comparing with a loan of a total debt of $100 billion, I think people get very quickly nervous, but I don't blame them because we have, unfortunately, a culture that we start being pessimist very soon. And this actually, outside country, I welcome them. But within the country, I think it's not desirable. Everybody must talk reasonably and must talk sensibly and prudently with responsibility. Because when you talk of economics, when you talk of economy, when you talk of numbers, when you talk of debt, when you talk of sustainability, I think one has to be very careful because your little loose talk can cost the country, a lot in terms of perception, in terms of market jitteriness, etc., etc. But as I said, our goal is now with these initiatives. These are the future drivers of growth. Your agriculture, your minerals, mines and minerals, and your IT. We have these three drivers of growth to be mainly focused in the years to come for the country. No matter who is in governance, this government will be completing its tenure, hopefully within a couple of weeks, and then there will be general elections, and whosoever gets the chance. I am believer of Charter of Economy. I remember when 2013, I presented probably the third budget. I actually tabled this idea in the Parliament that we should go for a Charter of Economy. And unfortunately, we couldn't manage it, and we couldn't succeed. We had, and then every year I used to offer the opposition, let's have a Charter of Economy, let's have the people of Pakistan as a witness on that charter, and let's have a future projection that which is our direction to take this country forward. But unfortunately, it couldn't materialize, but it's never too late. I think we should still aim at, and we will try, God willing, if we get re-elected, which we hope we will be, then obviously we can try all these things. It's too little time now, because we have been dealing with more priority, difficult areas in the last, me after September, and obviously the government after April 2022. So I personally believe that the vulnerability or turbulence is over. We are now in the stability phase, and now the things are turning towards the growth. And the growth, our goal is and should be that we should regain what we already achieved in 2016-17, 24th economy of the world. That should be the first step. The second step should be that we should go back to that projection of PricewaterhouseCoopers in 2016-17, Pakistan will join G20. I think Pakistan has the potential, Pakistan has the resources, Pakistan has the opportunities to offer to the investors in these three major areas. And as I said, that this, by the way, this fund would start off with only seven assets of the people of Pakistan, which are always held in the name of the government of Pakistan, which will add up to roughly 2.3 trillion rupees, and which is about $8 billion. So I think that this would be a start you will be seeing in the days to come, and we are all set to work for the progress and inshallah for the better growth and the old revival of Pakistan journey to the prosperity and the growth. So I wish all the honorable investors from the core of my heart that I wish that the opportunity we would work as a catalyst for them to make gainful investments in Pakistan, and for Pakistan it will prove to be a process of progress and prosperity. Pakistan Zindabad.
Let me just add one thing here, that the vision we have for Pakistan is very strategically located at the crossroad of three engines of growth in Asia. As you know, that now Asia is the future growth engine of the world economy. So Pakistan is very strategically placed between three very important engines of growth, and fourth engine with little proximity: South Asia, China, Central Asia, and Middle East. And that is where our China-Pakistan economic corridor, through its north-south connectivity and in future east-west connectivity, will be a major platform for integrating this 3 billion people region. So Pakistan currently is a very undervalued asset. And you all are very smart businessmen. And as businessmen, you know that you make the kill when you pick an undervalued asset. So it is time for you to come and invest in Pakistan and make that capital gain.
Thank you.
Just don't kill us. Make the kill.
I believe His Excellency Mr. Belushi would like to have a final comment as well.
If I just may share some closing remarks, just to your point on having resources, but they're not enough. $6 trillion, 60% of the population under the age of 30, is it enough? We had the same issue in Saudi. Cheap energy, we have a lot of oil, a lot of gas, is it enough? And this is the question we asked ourselves at the beginning of Vision 2030. But we realized quite quickly that we need two more things. First thing is the right leadership to drive change, implementation. That leadership is about capability and passion. And this is one thing that we see clearly from the conference today. We see quite capable ministers with the right passion and the spark in their eyes to deliver and make things change as fast as possible. The second thing is allies, having the right allies. And around the room, you see the best operators of mines, the best investment banking companies, you see the best legal firms, and you see a lot of countries, such as Saudi Arabia and other countries, trying to support and help. And you got the Belushi people as well that are ready to support. And some Zardar here said Belushi people are peaceful. And I quite, I'm Belushi, I can say no, they're not peaceful, especially a hungry Belushi is not a peaceful gentleman. But they're determined, and they take a challenge. And if the entire world is challenging them that an asset will not be developed, they will make it developed as soon as possible. And the Saudi nation is betting on Pakistan to make and win that challenge. We're sure that mine and the mining sector of Pakistan will be a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellencies.
I mean,
That's indeed a pertinent point.
Do you have a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds? I just want to, or do you want to move forward?
Carry on.
Look, is the resource enough? Is the asset enough? The answer is no. Because if the asset becomes morbid, then it is actually the reason why it becomes the reason for not developing. If you basically build up all the capture just in the asset, then in a single transaction of allocating that asset, you've made as much money as is needed. There is no incentive on God's green earth left to move downstream. And therefore, the only way an asset is going to become productive is if you compete for it. And the only way you can compete is if you open it up for competition. And the only way it is going to open up for competition is if there is level playing field. And the only way it's going to be level playing field if it's a just society and a just community and a just asset. So let's put our hands together in building up a fair and just community and society and country. That's our mantra. That's why we said three things. We said from dust to development. We said harmonize and humanize. And we said from red tape to red carpet. And as Professor Saab said, we are open for business. Please come join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mossadegh Malik. Excellencies, point well made. We need allies. We have the drive and the commitment. May I request the gentleman to please come forward for a group photograph. May I also request Mr. Ali Ehsan Rind, the country manager of Recodec Mining Company Private Limited, to join us for this photograph. Mark, if I may request you to come in for this as well. Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. The Ministerial Dialogue on Sustainable Governance and Mineral Development comes to a close. But may I request you all to kindly be seated, as I may request Mr. Ali Ehsan Rind, the country manager, the Recodec Mining Company Private Limited, to please deliver his vote of thanks.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay, Excellencies, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Barrick and our SOE's partners and Government of Balochistan, I would like to thank all of you for coming here and making this possible today. I'd also like to congratulate Government of Pakistan and Ministry of Petroleum for holding such a great event and such a great successful event. On behalf of Barrick, we would thank the ministry to giving us this opportunity to assist them, and we are truly humbled and honored to be part of this event. So sir, thank you very much. I also have one more request, is to make this event an annual recurring event. Rather than this as a one-off event, we should say this is the first edition of this event, and we should have an annual recurring event, which should be Pakistan Mineral Summit. I'm not going to hold everyone long, but I think when we'll meet next year, I'm quite confident that we would have been taken a lot of steps on this journey from dust to development. Thank you, everyone.